Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 64 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah, and it is time for our Western Conference preview, breakdown, whatever you want to call it. But before we start talking hockey, I gotta ask, as always, how is my co-host? How's life? And how is the start of the junior hockey season over there?
Oh man, and you know what? Like the WHL here, and we're gonna talk about the NCAA thing when it actually happens because the CHL players should be allowed into the NCAA within the month. There's a vote on it in the NCAA, and honestly, dude, like there's kind of a buzz around junior hockey right now, especially in the WHL. Like Landon DuPont gets exceptional status, and he makes a huge impact in his first few games. Roger McQueen has a rock star first few games. Like uh, this Red Deer Rebels team that I'm working for too looks really good. They beat the Medicine Hat Tigers twice, who have Gavin McKenna on that team, right? Like it's a bunch of really high end prospects in this league, and like you can kind of feel the energy, which is weird to say because like I never would have picked up on that before, but it seems like everybody's super into it.
Totally, man. Yeah, I mean, I can speak just from my family going to see Bulldogs games and enjoy those BCHL matchups, as well as enjoying the Port Alberni Bombers of the VIJHL, which are also there. Yeah, it's been a ton of fun for them, and as always, we are big supporters of junior hockey, and it's fun to see the community and these players just get after it and enjoy it. I mean, I gotta ask too. What is the atmosphere of a Rebels game like? I've heard it's a pretty cool barn.
It's very solid. Yeah. Well, and the community does a good job. It was quite full for the size of arena it is, and it's set up in a good way where the entire the entire lower bowl is like the all around bowl, but then the upper bowl is kind of only in the length sides of the arena, if you know what I mean, and there's no upper bowl seating behind the nets. So it doesn't feel like this massive arena that you're barely filling. Like and, and that's what takes away from the atmosphere. I think if you have 2,500 fans in a small arena, 2,500 fans can make that thing loud. But if you have 2,500 fans in an NHL sized rink, you're not getting any atmosphere there, right? So it's a good size for the turnout and the energy. It's a good vibe.
Happy to hear, my friend. And it seems like with all the stars in that league and all of the players of tomorrow in the dub, you're gonna have a lot of fun this season. Like this is probably one of the more fun years for you to work in the league, and I couldn't be happier that you're there. But Aiden, before we get to our Western Conference breakdown, one more thing. Probably the biggest slice of NHL news this preseason. Jeremy Swayman signs a massive 8-year contract sticking with the Boston Bruins after, a lot of media fanfare for better or for worse. How do you feel about the fact that he's signed now? And do you think all of this, I mean, let's call it media drama, is done? It's behind a closed door now. Like, do you think it's something they can forget about, or are we always gonna have a weird relationship here?
That's tough. I think it's fine. Like in the
Fine.
in yeah in the
Fine,
most boring.
my girlfriend says it's fine for me to miss our date and go for drinks with the boys, or fine,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's totally fine.
No. Actually, bang on the first one because, like, at the end of the day, that girlfriend is forgiving you, right? And I'm not
Yeah.
saying she's not going to make the next week of your life hell because she probably is, but but eventually it's going to be forgiven. So I bet you that like those Jeremy Swayman, Cam Neely like hallway interactions are going to be uncomfortable for a couple weeks.
Mhm.
Um, but I think beyond that, it's going to be fine.
Do you think Jeremy Swayman will ever be allowed by the organization to go on the Spit and Chicklets podcast?
That's another good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't have the answer for that one.
Me neither. Me neither. It's fun to speculate, though. Aside from that, couple small things, nothing worth us going too far into. Niels Höglander signs an extension in Vancouver. Vancouver also trades defenseman Tucker Pullman and a fourth rounder to Colorado for defenseman Eric Bronstrom. Hopefully, each of those guys manage to work out where they are. I mean, other than that, I think we might as well dive in and start with our preview of the San Jose Sharks. Aiden, a few words before we take a look at this lineup.
About San Jose,
Yeah.
James, it's it's character development. I guess
I
it's
love
the
character development.
yeah, it's the hero's backstory here, you know? Like it's the it's actually a storytelling tool. It's called kicking the dog. When you like have a protagonist that you want people to feel sympathy for, they will be like on the short end of the stick in the first act, right? Like it's a the movie Joker comes to mind because the horrible sequel apparently is in theaters right now. Like Joker employs that very well, where to an attempt to get you to feel sympathy for Arthur, it's the kicking the dog thing. Well, San Jose is going to be an excellent team, but they are going to get the crap kicked out of them this year because this roster looks tough. But like I said, this is building towards something bigger. And with the young pieces they already have in place, like I think the core, the most important parts of the core are there, and that's kind of where you're going to start to have fun with building the roster around guys like Celebrini and Smith and Eklund.
Aiden, when I take a look at this top six, it's a projected top six, obviously. Eklund, Celebrini, Toffoli, Granlund, Will Smith, Fabian Zetterlund. I think, oh, that's not too bad. But I also think, oh my God, how good is that going to be with maybe one or two players subbed in or out in 2 years? To me, that is a gross, awesome top six in a couple years. Probably Granlund gets switched out. Maybe Eklund or Zetterlund doesn't end up uh, remaining a top six forward. Maybe Toffoli ages out and regresses from there, and someone else goes in there. I mean, I really really like the foundation of it all. And then when you look at a possible third line of Barclay Goodrow, Luke Cunnin, and then Alexander Venberg, soon to be replaced by an eventually healthy Logan Couture, I've got no issue with that third line at all. Do you? Like I see no problems.
No, no. The forward core is good, and it's kind of what's funny is that they're almost where Arizona was a couple years ago, where the forward core has started to take shape, and the defense is behind, right? Sam Dickinson will no doubt accelerate the timeline on that defense the second he steps in that lineup. But you're talking about this forward core, James, and again, not every prospect works out, but there's a list of four names here, and two of these guys are going to be top nine forwards for the Sharks. Igor Chernyshov, Philip Beested, Quentin Musty, and Casper Halttunen. All four guys aren't going to, hit their ceiling full potential, but this skeleton of the Sharks team, even before you talk about guys that are still going to come in, like the infrastructure itself right now, if you put a full pause on everything, this team to their full potential is already going to be strong. And then again, if they're a lottery team again this year, which you would assume they will be, that's I have them last in the Pacific. You're going to add another superstar, right? Like it's looking at this and saying, "Oh wow, this is really good," but I don't even think it's close to what it's going to end up being. Like this, if there's San Jose fans that are looking at this roster and thinking, "Man, this hockey's going to be unwatchable," even if it is, you're 3 years away from something pretty special, I think.
As someone who watched Colorado have I mean at that time the worst season in the modern era, it was still fun hockey to watch. The talent was still there. It was still a great time to watch these guys develop, make mistakes, and get better every game. So if you're a Sharks fan, watch. Watch this sinking ship shoot fireworks into the sky. It's going to be awesome. But now let's take a look at the blue line. This is where a lot of your concerns lie. I will say, though, these are probably all NHL defensemen. I don't really feel like there's that many guys who should be in the AHL here, if any. I mean, a top four of Mario Ferraro, who is a very solid player, and I think could be a number three on most teams. Jan Ruda, solid defenseman. Jake Wallman, I've got no problems with him. I would have him in my top six any day of the week. Cody Ceci, again, no problem with him on my third pair, maybe second pair if needed. But then Henry Thrun and Matt Benning. And then when healthy, Mark-Edouard Vlasic in the twilight of his career. Um, there's a lot to be desired, but I do really like the puck moving ability of Ferraro and Wallman. And also, I mean, in a way, Henry Thrun, for these forwards to be able to at least get a solid first pass out of the D zone. And to be able to help out on special teams here and there. Like Wallman is the kind of guy who could slot in there just fine, and I imagine he will be on that first unit.
Worth saying as well, I bet you they could fetch a solid at what, second round pick for Mario Ferraro from a contender at the deadline that,
I think you're getting a first and a third for Ferraro.
well, there you go. Better than I said. So yeah, I don't have a problem with this defense, especially when you consider, like I said, this isn't the long-term goal, and these assets can still turn into turn into something for the future.
Definitely. Yaroslav Askarov currently injured, but projects to be ready within a short amount of time. In the meantime, Mackenzie Blackwood and Vitek Vanacek, which are both NHL goaltenders. I'm myself am a big fan of Blackwood. I think I just remember him from World Juniors trying really hard. Like it wasn't like he was playing incredible. I just liked him at the time. And I admittedly had a pretty crazy franchise mode with him once. So, when that happens, you always just end up cheering for a guy. But yeah, Askarov should pop back in. I imagine he'll probably play what, 40, 45 games this year?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question because I was under the impression that regardless of him being hurt, it was going to be starting in the AHL.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of what I picked up on based on the reporting around Askarov. It wasn't so much a you're hurt, you're not starting with the team. It was a he didn't make the team.
Oh.
Um,
Oh.
and I'm not shocked that in this situation something like that would have happened, right? Like it's his first training camp with a team. He's coming in as kind of a much like Rucker McGroarty, I think in Pittsburgh, where he came in and the expectation was that he was going to be on the team, and I think there might have been an element of complacency that comes with that. I'm speculating, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Other factor, maybe they are looking at. I would probably guess it would be Mackenzie Blackwood rather than Vitek Vanacek, but they're looking at Mackenzie Blackwood and they're saying, you know what? He's the starter. He's played better than Askarov. He is the better goalie right now. He's going to be our starter. And then that's where you have to ask yourself the question, all right, well, what's better for Askarov? Playing 25, 30 games riding the bench on a horrible team or starting in the AHL where he was an all-star last year, right? Probably starting in the AHL, especially when you have somebody like Vanacek. So I don't think it's like a alarm bells going off demotion, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Barracuda for the year.
Aiden, give me a breakout player on the San Jose Sharks, and you can't pick Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah, not Celebrini or Smith, but I think William Eklund's gonna have a ton of fun on this line. Like Eklund is very, very, very smart. And very, very smart players with very, very capable finishers do very well. Um, and Celebrini, Toffoli, and Eklund to me is gonna score some goals this year and potentially for years to come, actually, right? Like provided Toffoli can hold up.
I think on my end, I see a lot of production coming from Fabian Zetterlund. I think he's the kind of guy who could put up 58 points on a last place team and do some damage on the power play. I think people who picked him in fantasy will be very happy this year. Well, time to move on as we cruise our way through the Pacific Division. The Anaheim Ducks, Aiden. Oh, obviously neither of us have the Sharks in playoffs, but yes, moving on. The Anaheim Ducks. Um, I like what's going on here. I enjoy this roster. There's nowhere I look on this roster where I go, oh, this is an absolute nightmare. I look at every part of it and I see reasons for optimism and excitement. Where do you stand on the Anaheim Ducks as of today?
It's a it's kind of like San Jose, man. Like I
Really? To me, this team feels like 3 years ahead of the Sharks.
Oh no. They are ahead of the Sharks, don't get me wrong, but I still think this is going to be growing pains, right? Like I think
Yeah.
people expecting Cutter Gauthier to score 30 goals this year are going to be a little bit disappointed.
Okay. Shh. Let me live in blissful ignorance.
No, I know. And again, he could. Totally could, especially on that power play, man. Like this is a very capable offensive team. So if he gets put in the right situations, I he definitely could. But you have Frank Vetrano who hit 30 goals last year, right now penciled in on this third line with Troy Terry that I'm looking at, right? Cutter Gauthier is not automatically going to get a first line start with Troy Terry
No.
on this team, right? So and I am championing this forward depth a little bit. I expect moves to be made because again, they've been trying to trade Trevor Zegras. I don't think there's a path for him to play center there anymore. I think he's a better winger, anyways, personally. But again, it seems like it's a marriage that's falling apart. Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish are the guys that I'm looking at. Like, okay, this is their year to take a step. Um, the defense, it's Pavel Mintyukov. I think people expecting a lot out of Tristan Luneau or Olin Zellweger again are going to be disappointed. Uh,
It's
Zellweger is,
I've heard Zellweger's probably not even gonna end up on the team this like to start the season.
yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised because he's a small offense first defenseman, right? And at the end of the day, those players aren't making the NHL raw. There are some types of players that can be very effective, good NHLers before they're fully developed. A small offense first defenseman isn't one of those guys. That's the reality. Um, which is part of the reason why I think Mintyukov has an easier path. He's just a better all-around defenseman. He's more physically capable of being in the NHL right now. Um, so yeah, again, this is a team that if this team continues on the trajectory it looks like they're going on, they're going to be really good. But I think they're going to be better than San Jose. And you know what? I actually do think this team's going to finish out of Calgary, but that's almost more an indictment on this Flames roster that we're going to
Yeah.
get to in a second
Yeah.
here. Because
I'm
they're
much in the same boat, Aiden.
yeah, there's a lot of capability in this team. The question is going to come about like what level are these young guys going to play to this year specifically? Because I think it's coming, but not yet.
Aiden, there have been teams in the past few years that everybody knows they're not going to make the playoffs, but they score a ton of goals in their wins and they get blown right out or score a lot of goals but lose like 8-3, 8-4 in their losses. I think this is one of those rosters. I could totally see this team being top 20 in goals for, but second last in goals against, which I mean, I guess is that's the way you look at it standings wise, but I mean, in a way, that's probably second in goals against, like second most goals allowed. Um, because you go through this roster, Cutter Gauthier, I think he's going to get over 20 goals. Leo Carlson could get over 20 goals. Alex Killorn, a healthy season, 15 goals. That makes sense.
At least
Robbie
he's
Fabry,
healthy.
I could see another 15, 20. Mason McTavish, I could see another 20. Zegras, give me another 15. Vetrano, with the minutes, 30. Ryan Strome, more of an assist guy. I'll just walk past him, but maybe that's another 10 goals. Troy Terry could score another 30. Brock McGinn could chip in 10. Like, and then you look to the blue line. I think you're going to get 30 goals from that blue line, at least altogether. At least. There's enough talent on this roster where it's still going to be super exciting hockey. Do I think they're going to get trounced fairly often? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This young, mostly young, inexperienced roster, they're going to have a really hard time some nights. They're going to have like a Saturday afternoon in Boston and lose 7-1 like in the middle of an Atlantic road trip. It's going to suck. But there's going to be other nights where Seattle has a hard time defensively and this team wins 6-3. and you're looking at it going, whoa, I see the chemistry, I see the talent. I love how this power play could set up. There are so many options here, but I just love that you're going to get a combination of four of these six forwards: Troy Terry, Mason McTavish, Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras, Frank Vetrano. Some guys are going to slot in, some are going to slot out. Whether that's health or performance issues, you're going to see a lot of fun. And you know what? If they are having trouble moving the puck, put Ryan Strome in there. He's a great passer. I don't mind that at all. And the defenseman could be Cam Fowler, could be Pavel Mintyukov, could be one of Jackson Lacombe or Tristan Luneau on a night. You don't really know what you're going to get, but for head coach Greg Cronin, you are going to have to give a lot to ensure that you stay in that spot. You have to earn that ice time. It's not going to be easy. I like Isaac Lundestrom as a penalty killer. I like him as a depth forward. I think he can play higher in the lineup than he's projected to. A lot of that has to do with ice time and availability. Um, Again, just like you, I have the Ducks probably finishing ahead of the Flames. And if the Kraken can't figure it out, I can see a world where they'd fall down very low as well. But I see reasons for it to be fun to be a Ducks fan. Enough so that I picked Cutter Gauthier very high in our fantasy draft. Very high. Given that is a keeper league and everyone's already kept 12 players each, and between 15 guys, that's a lot. It's a lot. Like that's not a small amount of guys. But I'm fairly high on Cutter Gauthier this season. I have him penciled in for a top three spot in Rookie of the Year voting. Maybe that's expecting too much, but that's my breakout candidate for this team. Aiden, who do you got?
McTavish for sure. Not just in terms of
That's
points, but in terms of like I think this is the year we see the I can't remember what year it was for Austin Matthews, but there was literally one year with Matthews where he finished the season being an unplayable pylon in his own zone and then started the next season all of a sudden being a Selke caliber forward. Like that's kind of the McTavish is going to round out his game this year and be like a dominant all-around 1C. That's kind of what I think of him because he got the offense going last year, but there's another step to be taken in his overall game. Not to mention, I know he's the kind of guy that the carrot of back-to-back years with best on best international tournaments is gonna really he's gonna want to be that guy that nobody expects to make that team and could because he's that good. I don't predict him to, but if you ask me for, who's gonna be the random 22-year-old that cracks the lineup, he's on the list.
and also one last note before we move on from the Ducks. John Gibson currently injured, currently icing a tandem of Lucas Dostal and James Reimer. I've got no problem with that either. I think Lucas Dostal is like a low caliber starter at this point in his career or a very good backup. You're kind of playing him a lot of games to see what you have in him, and the guy's got a lot of fight. And Optimus Rhyme, perfectly competent backup. So, yeah, I mean, that's the Ducks. Cam Fowler could get traded this season, according to Elliot Friedman. That is something that could happen. If that happens, expect a hell of a lot of Pavel Mintyukov and Zellweger probably getting called up. So, time to move on. Aiden, who do we have next?
It's time for the Calgary Flames. You can start this off.
Well, this is an interesting roster. I know I'm not supposed to preface anything, but I will preface this by saying three key players on this roster will be traded by the end of the season. To me, those players are Andrei Kuzmenko, Blake Coleman, and Rasmus Anderson. Blake Coleman scored the sneakiest 30 goals in the NHL last year. If someone told me without me looking last year that Blake Coleman scored 30 goals, I would tell them straight to their face that they are lying. And that's no knock on the guy. He's a cup champ for a reason. He's a hell of a player. But I had no idea that happened. I remember following along and going, oh, He's producing fairly well in fantasy. And when I would flick on a Flames game, I would notice him a lot, but I had no idea. So props to him. Maybe that's something he does again this year. Something Aiden and I talked about before we hit record was the fact that um 2023 first rounder Samuel Honzek appears to be on the roster still. And it looks like he will at least start the season in a top six role. So that is some reason for excitement where, not every prospect is going to work out. You just saw Calgary waive Jacob Pelletier, who I at one point was fairly high on. You see Connor Zary working out fairly well there. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Matt Coronado. There are a lot of things that could be pretty cool on this roster. I think Kevin Ball, being like a number four defenseman for a full season is something interesting to watch. He might be decent. You could be very surprised by the offense from the back end between Mackenzie Weegar, Daniil Miramanov, and Rasmus Anderson, and Jake Bean for that matter. But Aiden, this team's gonna get scored on a lot. I love Dustin Wolf. He has been an AHL MVP. He's been a two-time AHL goalie of the year. I don't mind Dan Vladar as a backup, but man, those guys are gonna get hounded. Aiden, is this going to be the goalie tandem we see with the worst numbers in the NHL this year, save percentage wise?
I think San Jose's is going to rival them with that defense that the Sharks have.
Very fair.
Um, but it's going to be close. Craig Conroy has done a really, really good job so far. I've said that a million times, but
This is your style of management.
it is. Well, and James, you're saying three guys being what did you say? Anderson, Kuzmenko, and
And
Coleman?
Coleman. Yeah.
Man, they absolutely can and arguably should get the world for Mackenzie Weegar. He is really good. Like it's everything he does is correct and at the highest level it could be when I watch him play. And no, he's not Cale Makar, and no, he's not Shea Weber, but he's 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 a phenomenal mix of the offensive puck moving quick guy and the guy that if you're coming down on him in a one-on-one, you're like, I'm dumping this in, right? Like it's almost wasteful for him to stay in Calgary through this, in my
Hold on.
opinion.
I will get you to hold the phone on that because one thing that I have read and that I already kind of know about Mackenzie Weegar, phenomenal culture guy, unreal locker room guy, the teammate you want to go into the trenches with. And I think as a lot of these young guys come in and there's a ton of turnover on the roster because they've traded away, it feels like a million guys. And it's not over. You need some staying power. You need steadying presence. And yes, Mikhail Backlund most likely will remain and end up retiring as a Calgary Flame. He is their captain for a reason. Jonathan Huberdeau, that contract's not going anywhere. Kadri, that contract's going to be incredibly difficult to move. They would get a lot for him, but I don't see a world where he gets moved this season. I think Mackenzie Weegar sticks around. Continue.
It's just the age.
Yeah.
That's what I bump up against with him is like it's almost he's gonna turn into Dale Talon with those Chicago Blackhawks teams that won cups where he did all this work in instituting this culture and then he's not gonna be able to to be contributing to it because he's gonna have aged out of his prime before they're ready to take that step. Um,
GM that builds is almost never the GM that celebrates.
no, you're right about that. I like Coronado too. You brought him up. Huberdeau, Kadri, Kuzmenko to me could work simply because I think Jonathan Huberdeau does his best work off the rush and slinging the puck around when the defense is moving. Huberdeau struggles in a stagnant position. I find he needs things to be moving ahead of him to be playing his best hockey. And guys like Kadri and Kuzmenko, I think, would complement that pretty well. I look at this team and I see a team that's going to be entertaining enough to watch. And the incredible return they've got for the assets they've traded over the last 18 months, I hope is just the start for them because Rasmus Anderson should command a lot back. Andrei Kuzmenko, if he continues the way he was playing after the trade last year, should command a lot back. And Blake Coleman, yeah, I understand why you said it was quiet 30 goals. I live here, so it wasn't quite as quiet a 30 goals
Yeah.
for me. But not just because of the potential goal scoring he brings. Like he's a good, yeah, like you said it. He's a cup champ for a reason. He's a good all around player, and uh, any team making a push, like he was traded for a first round pick before he had scored anything close to this amount, right? Like he's going to demand a lot, and Calgary should be looking to exploit how much value he's going to have to a contender.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of a lot of the players on this team. There are a lot of guys that I cheer for here. But I love watching a team get built from the ground up, and it's not done yet. It's not done at all. I think Rasmus Anderson is going to make a very good Nashville Predator. I think that's going to end up happening. Just my guess. But Aiden, no playoffs?
No, I do have them between Anaheim and San Jose in seventh.
Okay. Breakout player on this roster.
I think we see another solid step from Connor Zary. Last year was the I can be a middle six forward in the NHL, and I think this year is going to be the no, like I'm going to be here and I'm going to be here for a long time. Like you're going to see a lot of times when I look at guys breaking out on teams that are expected to be bad, my breakout for those guys is taking the reins. And I think Connor Zary kind of takes the reins as the guy from Kadri and Huberto. Like he's going to end up being the guy skating into the dot on the opening faceoffs and down a goal with 90 seconds left. He's the guy that's going to come over the boards, right? Like it's 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 going to start being built around him. And hopefully Coronado, I'd love to see him take that step. Um, but you'll see the top six be catered towards his success now as much as Kadri's or Kuzmenko's or Huberto's, right?
I have Yegor Sharangovich taking another step forward when he comes back from IR.
Wow.
Yeah,
Are we talking step forward production? Because that would be hard.
both. I think he
Oh,
becomes a more complete player and he gets even better. And you see him either being one of those last man standing from the rebuild guys as the team gets good again, or you see him get moved for a lion's share as a 70-point guy.
yeah. No, I mean
I'm
it's
very high on him, and I will say I wasn't this time last year.
no. He looked phenomenal last season in Calgary. It's the he's at the age I think if he's down to go through the turbulence that a rebuild always comes with, I think Calgary should keep him because I do think what we saw out of him last year, I don't think is an anomaly. I think that's going to be the not the exception, right? It's going to be the constant with him.
Last one for me on the Flames before we move on. When you see one of two or even both of Andrei Kuzmenko and Blake Coleman get traded, watch for Anthony Mantha to pot a lot of goals. I think he will just have a mountain of ice time and a lot of room on that right wing to succeed. And Aiden, as we've said before with bad teams, somebody has to score the goals. So, time to move on. Aiden, it's the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, I've
Please
got
tell me
them.
what we're gonna see from them this year, because let me tell you, I have no idea.
Doesn't this roster scream mediocre to you? Like it and it's frustrating because again, I've said this a lot. Ron Francis had the pieces in place to keep building this looking ahead to the future. And I'm looking at a lot of roadblocks and I'm looking at a lot of veterans being prioritized over this youth. What's the result going to be? Well, there's a case to be made that sheltering guys like Shane Wright and Matty Beniers behind Chandler Stevenson, Yanni Gord, Jared McCann, like it Might it help their development not to be leaned on? You know what? If the team has playoff expectations, I have no problem with young guys being depth players, but I just don't see this team as having done enough to realistically have playoff expectations. Like, uh, the offense in this team is still coming from guys that I'm just not confident in. Like, Jared McCann being a 40 goal scorer was really cool. I have a lot of faith in the guy, but I don't think he's going to do that again. Jordan Eberle's best years are behind him. You've got Jaden Schwartz, whose best years are behind him. Yanni Gord has taken a step back I didn't expect in Seattle last season. Likewise with Brandon Tanev, you don't know what you're going to get with Andre Burakovsky coming back from an injury. You never really know what you're going to get with Oliver Bjorkstrand. He could either be the third liner who frustrates you because he scores 5 goals in 5 games, then dries up, right? Like that's been his MO at times. I like the defense, but again, like it's going to be everything is pretty solid. Is anything good enough to be what breaks them through into the playoffs? Um, I don't think so. And part of my frustration comes from the fact that it seems they would have been better served not to have made so many buyer type moves.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to play devil's advocate, but I say attempt because I don't have that much faith in my ability to while looking at this roster. Aiden, I was very hard on the Buffalo Sabres. You were hard on the Detroit Red Wings. I think you know what, I have to scratch most of what I just said because I think I'm about to be really hard on the Seattle.
Oh man. Okay. What did you just notice?
I noticed that while having one of the most structurally complete top four defense in the NHL, like you have Vince Dunn with Adam Larson, puck moving offensive defenseman with great two-way upside, with a great defensive D who has an awesome physical edge. Exact same thing on the second pair with Jamie Alexiak and Brandon Montour. I could almost argue that that pair is going to be better on some nights. Riker Evans on the third pair. I like what he could bring to the table. Is he NHL ready? No idea. I have no idea how his development's gone. Will Borgen, I don't mind him. Number 6D, sure. I think he could even play more minutes if needed. All right. I've talked about the good part. Everything from here is about to go downhill. This is a landslide, actually. I think the highlight of Joey Decord's career happened in a 20-game stretch last year, and the Cinderella run with for him is over. I think he is a starting goalie in the NHL, not good enough to carry them through 50 games that I think he needs to play. It's not going to go great. Philip Grubauer. It's all been downhill since he left Colorado, baby. I'm really sorry. I hope he enjoys making money. It's a lot of money because it's a no tax state.
No, it's not.
Yep.
Washington State is a no tax
Yep.
state. That cannot be right.
No state tax for athletes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right.
No state
Because
tax for athletes.
okay, there are states where it's just like there is no actual state tax rate for like anybody, right? It's just the federal tax rate. But
Yes,
generally that's
they do have this benefit here, which is why I think a lot of these players have signed here in free agency.
okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
because
usually there's yeah, usually usually it's not it wouldn't be Washington to have abolished taxes in general.
all right, forwards. Jordan Eberle. Best days are behind you. I want to see you get traded because I think you still have some clutch genes left. I don't want to see any more of you in Seattle. The jerseys look cool. Cool on you, kinda, maybe, but time to move on. Let's send him somewhere where he can win. Matty Beniers, this contract is a ton of pressure, and he, even with Chandler Stevenson there, is going to have to shoulder some tough minutes. I'm sorry Chandler Stevenson can't play against other teams' first and second forward lines every night. It's not going to work. I don't think Matty Beniers is there yet. I am more than ready to be proven wrong, though. Show me something good. I would love to see it. Jared McCann, can I shelve you in for 30? Probably. Is
Yeah.
that going to win this team more games? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. Jaden Schwartz, awesome guy. from all accounts I've heard. Andre Burakovsky, loved him in Colorado. I haven't seen any of what I loved in Colorado in Seattle. I've seen maybe a few really nice plays. Chemistry hasn't been there. The player styles that he flourishes with haven't been there. Chandler Stevenson, big fan. I think he'll be an awesome 2C on a team that's trying to compete. I don't think this team can compete. Eeli Tolvanen, probably the winger on this team other than Jared McCann that I have the most confidence in. Is he going to get enough minutes to succeed? Probably not, because they are log jammed everywhere.
That's
Everywhere.
that's part of my frustration too, James,
You've
is
got
like,
nine wingers here who need a solid amount of ice time. They're not getting it. Shane Wright, I think he'll probably have between 35 and 45 points because no matter what, there will be good wingers there. And I think he's going to play the full season and he's going to get some power play time. How much? I don't know. Probably not going to lock on the first unit for long, but it doesn't matter because they have 30 million freaking forwards who deserve power play time. Bjorkstrand, everything you just said. Kai Karche, like I said, I want to see him develop, but logjam.
yeah.
I think he's an awesome third line scoring forward, but he's only got enough room to play 9 minutes a night.
All right, I've got them fifth in the Pacific, missing playoffs.
I've got them behind the Ducks
Oh, interesting. So
and the
sixth.
Flames.
Oh, so seventh. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, hey, I am. I don't entirely uh disagree with the opinion. I think Shane Wright is there's something to be said for like the the piece of a person that just wants to so badly prove everybody wrong.
Yep.
And I think that's what Shane Wright's gonna be. He's just gonna be this like, oh, look at me now, as he dances everybody and has a quiet like 55 points. The only thing stopping him would be the logjam of forwards. That's it, right? And
Breakout player on this roster, Aiden.
it's right for sure. Like it's again, and you know what? I actually think everybody who doesn't like Shane Wright, nothing I say is going to change their mind. It's like they've just decided that he sucks. Um, so it's just going to be watch the guy play
Aiden, we're
hockey.
a pro Shane Wright podcast.
Yes, I know. So watch the guy play hockey, and you will see why everybody who has faith in him has faith in him, right? Why he was a fourth overall pick, why why he was regarded the way he was regarded, and I don't think uh, losing a season to an injury and then a season to COVID should you know should sully anybody's opinion here.
My breakout player on this team is Riker Evans. I think he establishes himself as an NHL defenseman. Does breakout mean he's going to pot a ton of points and be an insane special teams player? No. Breakout can mean that he is ready to just be a pro. And that's what I think he is. I think he is an NHL defenseman who could be a solid number 3 or 4 if everything goes right. And I think this season he'll take steps towards that. Moving on. Vegas Golden Knights. Aiden, when we started talking about the Kraken, I said, I have no idea what this team's going to be. I want to say that about Vegas, but to a lesser degree. But at the same time, I start looking at this roster and I start thinking about who's in charge of this team. And I remember that this team is going to walk into playoffs and do some serious damage as long as they don't match up with Dallas first round again. Aiden, I look at this roster and I think if somehow the Oilers and the Knights are a first round matchup, they are some combination of 2 and 3 in the division or one in a wild card. I honestly think Vegas is the only team in the Pacific that can beat Edmonton right now.
Yeah, they have the best defense in the division, and that's why you'd be you'd be right. I don't
And
know
I
where the
love their game
goals.
breakers.
Yeah, me too. I don't know where the goals come from if it's not specifically off the stick of three guys, right? And I know William Karlsson's hurt and he will help, but Ivan Barbashev I struggle with because it was a lot of money they paid him and he earned it. But then last year he took a pretty significant step back. Um, you're asking a lot of a middle six group of wingers being Dorofeev, Holtz, Brisson, Olofsson. They signed Pearson and claimed Lavoie. Like I don't think there are two top six wingers in that group. There is a maximum of one, and even then, maybe. So my worry is that this team is going to lose a lot of 2-1 games. But the defense and the goaltending, if they get the goals, if the puck's going in the net, because sometimes it is just a matter of it's going their way. Somebody's hot, the power play's hot. This particular line is just clicking. Jack Eichel's going off. Like I think the ceiling's high. I think they need some goal scoring help.
I want to see a major shuffle in their forward lines. As of right now, their top six forwards project as Barbashev, Eichel, Stone, Dorofeev, Hurdle, and then one of Holtz or Olofsson. Okay, so I don't mind this structurally if you shuffle it a certain way.
Yeah, no,
I,
Victor
I
Olofsson shouldn't be playing if he's not playing with Eichel. Like
well,
there's
I don't mind him or Holtz on the third line, but then the other one has to be with Eichel. And then with them, I want Barbashev. But I want Hurdle with Stone, and I think the two of them could unlock Dorofeev and make him a 20 and 20, which is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine when you have as many points as you will coming from this ridiculous blue line we're going to get to. I love Nico Waugh. Sick. Awesome player. Brendan Brisson could be solid. Keegan Colasar and Brett Howden on that fourth line. Sign me up. Tanner Pearson? I don't know. William
you,
Carlson
you,
when he comes back. That guy was 30 and 30 last year. Nobody talks about that.
I'd be floored if Tanner Pearson plays more than 15 games on this team this year. It's not
Okay,
going to
that,
happen.
that's a good note to add.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is the year that we see Jack Eichel explode ridiculously offensively and maybe even be considered a Hart Trophy contender. I think he's going to be 30 points above the next guy on the team at least.
No, I think if Jack Eichel plays 80 games, I think he has 100 points this year.
Yep, 100%.
Um, yeah.
What do you think
Uh,
they get out of Thomas Hurdle?
That's really hard. I am very, very high on his talent. I always have been. Um, you know what? I think he ends up 30, 30, 60. Right?
Okay.
I think this power play with him in the bumper would do wonders, right? Like he's so smart. He's very capable of scoring a ton of power play goals. The biggest question mark, I think, is Olofsson because I think he's a year away from being labeled Mike Hoffman status of, okay, you're not good enough to score goals anymore, and since that was the only thing you could ever do, you're done. Um,
Mike Hoffman was a pretty good passer too. Like he was nasty on a power play in every way.
yeah, I remember the Ottawa Senators Mike Hoffman pre-cyberbullying Eric Carlson's wife was
Okay, and
was
Florida Panthers, Mike Hoffman piled up points.
yeah, but that Mike Hoffman didn't play well. That Mike Hoffman feasted on the same Florida Panthers team that Huberto got 115 points on. Like he had stopped playing anything but offense at that point. Um, or
It,
not even offense, stopped doing anything but get puck, shoot puck.
I mean, that is a tangent we could go off. I honestly, I could talk 2017 Ottawa Senators for a million years because that is such an odd, strange team that did so many things. But before I get to the defense, to me, the biggest X factor on this team, and this sounds dumb, but it's Alexander Holtz. If this guy breaks out and puts up 50 points, this team is dynamic and disgusting through their top nine, through their all forward lines. If he doesn't, they have a massive hole that they need to fill at the trade deadline with some ridiculous salary cap gymnastics that most likely include Mark Stone being on LTIR. I don't see any other way that this team can succeed without making a move. And I'm not talking succeed game in, game out. This team has fight. They have depth on defense. They have solid goaltending, and they have, by all accounts, kind of a win or nothing mentality. All these guys want to win, and they have a lot of dogs on this team. But I think Alexander Holtz needs to break out. So he is my breakout pick. I'm just going to jump ahead there. But let's get to the blue line here. Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo, dynamite. Noah Hannafin after the deadline was their best defenseman. Noah Hannafin, to me, has been a number two defenseman for most of his career, playing in a number three or four spot.
Yeah, he is one of the, if not the best number three in the league right now, right? Like if you look at least the roles these players are playing in, like, um, yeah, he's been on teams. You basically nailed it on the head. He's been on teams where he hasn't had the opportunity or hasn't even been asked to shine in the way that he's pretty damn capable of, right? And you add McNabb, Whitecloud, Haig, Korzak around this group of three, and to me, there's no version of a top six you can make out of that group of defensemen that isn't going to be the strongest defense in the Pacific Division. Like I think this is better than Edmonton by a lot. I
Yeah,
think this is better than Vancouver by a lot. I think this is better than LA by a lot. And like honestly, man, like Seattle and Vegas might have the two best defense cores in the Pacific, and I only
yep,
have one of those teams in the top four, and it's Vegas in third. Like
totally, totally. Um, who's your breakout pick?
I have more faith in Dorofeyev than Holtz.
Very fair.
So
I've seen
Dorofeyev,
more pro ability
yes,
from Dora.
exactly. Yeah. I want Holtz, right? Like it's apparently been coming from him, and I had a lot of faith, and it's dwindling. So I'd like it to happen for him, but I have more faith in Dorofeyev sticking in that top six.
Um, what do you think of the goaltending? We've got Aiden Hill and Ilya Samsonov here. I'm confident in it. I like it.
Me too, because they have Akira Schmid too. So
Yep.
the question mark that is Samsonov, like at the end of the day, if he's brutal, fine, Schmid can come up, right? Like Samsonov's the shaky one. Aiden Hill to me is a number one. He's a starter. Period. Like he's I don't see him as a very above or very below average starter to me. He's a solid starting goaltender with two guys that could both be solid backups behind him. I got no concerns.
Aiden, if I'm Vegas, I'm eyeing one forward at this year's trade deadline. Andrew Mangiapane, Washington Capitals. He fits the mold. He does everything you could ask from them. And while he is expensive at 5.8 million, Washington would have no problem retaining half of that. And this is Vegas we're talking about. There will be double retention. That will happen.
Last thing on Vegas, just before we move on, they claimed Rafael Lavoie on waivers today. He's going to get games in that top six. This
Yep.
guy can shoot the puck very well. He's got very good offensive sense in the like in the he's gonna be in the right place, right? He knows how to set himself up to receive passes through passing lanes, right? Like it's when you see a guy like Alexander Ovechkin standing in one spot, not every one-time goal is standing there and waiting. A lot of it is knowing where to be and knowing when to, for instance, make a cut through the crease or stop in front of the net or circle up to the high slot, right? And Lavoie has a very good hockey sense about him. The problem with him in Edmonton was he wasn't good enough to play in the top six. And what I'm describing here is a very good passenger, but he's never been a good line driver himself. So Vegas claiming him on waivers tells me they see that in him. And I think a chance with Thomas Hurdle is going to happen. Do I think he's going to stick? I wouldn't count on it with guys like Dorofeyev and Olofsson and Holtz that are more established than him, but he's going to get a look, and it's worth mentioning.
100%. You have them at three. I think I also have them at three. It's to me, it's anywhere between two and four. It's really hard, but I think three is the right spot. I
Next
think
is Los Angeles, and if you're saying for you Vegas could be anywhere between three and four, I'm going to let you start with LA because it sounds like you're going to be higher on them than I am.
Oh, Aiden, I said 2 and 4.
Yeah, but that's insinuating that LA is the four, right? That was more what I
Yeah.
meant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I more meant I more meant considering LA as part of this top tier teams because I don't know if I do right now with this Drew Doughty injury being what it is.
Aiden, to me, it's not LA being a top tier team. It's the bottom 4 teams in this division being incredibly weak. And it's also the fact that Vegas is a couple injuries away from floundering. Realistically, like it's if we see them loaded with injuries, it's going to be just like the year before they win the cup. It's going to be a team that just can't really put things together and is constantly fighting an uphill battle. But moving on, again, the LA Kings. I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism with this roster, but I think there are a lot of things that could leave you wanting more. With the LA Kings, yes, Drew Doughty being injured is the main concern. That is rather frightening. So he is injured for quite a while. Up front, I think they have a lot of fun, a lot of talent, and maybe an extra gear from a few players to be unlocked. Adrian Kempe, we know what we're getting with him. He is a surefire top line forward. This guy could put up a point per game. He is that, and it wouldn't shock me if he's slightly above that. If he put up 90 points this year, I would say, okay, yeah, sure, that makes sense. If he put up 60, I'd be worried. I think he should slot in between 70 and 85. That's, I think, where his sweet spot is. I think that's probably what he will be for the rest of his prime. Um, I think this is the year Quinton Byfield overtakes Anze Kopitar.
Yep.
And I'm not talking overtakes in all facets of the game because I'm sorry, Quinton Byfield will probably never be as defensively sound as Anze Kopitar has ever been, even at this stage of his career. Philip Danault also fills that role and is a dynamic two-way center who could probably put up 50 points again for you on your third line. This team is very deep up the middle. I don't love Alex Turcotte on the fourth line. I don't really think that is going to stick around. I honestly wonder if he gets traded for an established fourth liner and a draft pick, if that. Alex Laferriere, I think he's a 20 goal scorer this year. Kevin Fiala, similar to Adrian Kempe, just a lot less complete. And then Fogle, everyone's saying Fogel's going to be in the top 6. And if you want to balance your lines, I get it. I don't think he's a top 6 forward. We all know he's not, but we have seen him fill in that role decently well. The reason this can work is because you are going to have 3 separate dangerous lines. And to create a balanced attack, a third line of Tanner Jeannot, Philip Danault, and Trevor Moore, who I think is one of the more underrated players in the league, is that something that can wreak havoc on another team's depth. Or that can shut down and work against a team's top line while a Byfield and Fiala or Byfield and Kempe line does a bunch of damage when they get to feast on a tough matchup. Okay, everything outside of the good things that I've mentioned up front is bad. Tanner Jeannot is only going to work with the right combination of forwards, maybe. Alex Turcotte is not there. I would love to be proven wrong. He had a couple nice games at the end of the year. I'd like to see what Akil Thomas can bring to the table. This is a guy who's, to me, hasn't really ever gotten a chance just because of health, depth, everything of the kind. I see they have a forward named Andre Lee penciled in. Do you know anything about this guy?
No. Quite frankly. To me, that fourth line is more likely to look Turcotte, Thomas, Trevor Lewis than it is.
Trevor Lewis. See, I like
Yeah.
that. I like
Yeah.
Trevor Lewis a lot, even at this stage of
Um,
his career.
I'm a big Jack Studnicka guy too in a fourth line center role. They picked him up in the offseason. Um, to me, he's the perfect 13th forward. Like he'll go bang bodies and he's got enough skill that if you he's competent in offensive situations and he's responsible enough to play defense. He's the guy I want as the 4C there, kind of between Thomas and Turcotte, even if not Trevor Lewis.
Totally.
Um, yeah, this defense is
Even
interesting.
if you sub out this Andre Lee and Alex Turcotte and you go Trevor Lewis and Jack Studnicka with Akil Thomas, I like that fourth line. I
Yeah.
really do.
the D, right? And that's the that's what we're running into as far as I think the biggest question mark because Jordan Spence, Brant Clark, and Kyle Burrows as the right side is hard. Like, I like Jordan Spence a lot. I love Brant Clark. He's my breakout guy on this team, but
Same.
that is so many question marks with a left side of Mikey Anderson, who I like a lot, Vladislav Gavrikov, who's solid, and Joel Edmondson, who's regressed a lot in the last couple seasons. So this is a team that even with Doughty on it, I would look at and I'd say if they could upgrade one of these guys, that would really help. So now that you've lost your number one, it's almost like I'm looking at this team as two top four defensemen away from being a solid enough group of defensemen.
Right. And one of them's
Uh,
Drew Doughty, who they will get back.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? If Brant Clark ends up being a top four defenseman out of the gate,
Yeah.
I'm down, sure. If
Okay.
Jordan Spence does, he's got the potential. Like it could happen. Um, Now I would be way less pessimistic about this defense if I thought they had a goaltender that was going to save them games. I don't think Darcy
Oh, you're gonna
Kemper's.
be really hard on Darcy Kemper
Well,
right now.
I don't think he's horrible. I think Riddick is horrible. That's another thing.
Big save, Dave. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he is. But Kemper for me would need a much better defense for me to be confident in him. I guess that's all I'm going to say about Kemper because I'm not super down on the guy, but I think he's realistically at this point in his career a below average starter, not unplayable, but no longer what he was.
Aiden, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I think the left side of that defense is strong enough to keep Kemper out of experiencing hell every night. You're out anytime, you will have one of Mikey Anderson, Vladislav Gavrikov, or Joel Edmondson on the ice. And I think those are all very effective shutdown guys, no matter what stage of their career. Is this prime Joel Edmondson? No. Is him and Brant Clark a really, really smart pairing? Oh yeah.
It
Oh
was
yeah.
deliberate too. That's what they got Edmonton for.
Yep. Yeah. Do I think by the end of the season, Brant Clark is a more important player on this team than Jordan Spence? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone has Jordan Spence penciled in right now as as the guy to rely on with Doughty out. No, 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 no. That's Brant Clark. Is he gonna have a brutal first handful of games in that in maybe in the first month? I think maybe like you're gonna see some really tough games from him as he adjusts to the NHL style of play, NHL pace of play, the physicality of the forwards forechecking against him. Like he's going to have Barbashev trying to knock his lights out
Yeah.
like once every couple weeks on the forecheck. That's tough. And when it's not Barbashev, oh man, there are a lot of other tough customers in the NHL that are going to frighten him. Like think about Ryan Lomberg in Calgary. That's his job. Go forecheck against
Pospisil.
Brant Clark. Yeah, Pospisil.
Yeah.
Make Brant Clark's life hell. He's gonna have some really bad nights, but he's also going to be able to hop on that power play, and he's also going to be able to make probably like a two-line pass to Kevin Fiala for a breakaway. You're going to see some random Erik Karlsson level creativity here. He has every piece to become a number one defenseman in the NHL, which is why I also picked him too high in fantasy. I have
Yeah,
now
but I
other people who would have taken him within the next round, but
yeah, that was me too. Um yeah, yeah, it's a high ceiling and I think he hits the high ceiling. I don't know if he hits a high ceiling this year.
over or under on points for Quinton Byfield this year.
Uh
I got 71.5.
yeah, I was gonna say 74.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would pencil him in between 70 and 75 as well. Yeah.
Okay. And LA Kings, you have them at 4.
I do have them at 4.
All
You know
right.
what, James? I have them missing the playoffs at 4.
Oh, Okay, yeah, that's actually kind of reasonable. Oh yeah, yeah, that is.
So for me,
Oh, I know what this means, and I can't wait to talk about it later because I actually agree with you.
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, we have the same thought for how these wild cards balance out. One thing I will add, shout out their head coach, Jim Hiller, native of Port Alberni, BC, same hometown as me. I think that's pretty cool. I will at some point hope to get him on the podcast.
Random aside, very quickly, James, I didn't tell you this. You know what? We hopped on the call and I said to James, I had something to tell you, and I totally forgot about it.
How was
Um,
this?
no, it was what I'm about to say now. Yeah. And you saying you wanted to get Jim Hiller on as the guest is what sparked it in my brain. I have a buddy named Ty Gordon who is from Central Alberta, played hockey in Drayton Valley in the AJHL last year, James. He just made his debut on his new team this year. He's playing in the NAHL, which is the second highest
No.
junior
Yeah.
league in the States for El Paso. So I'm gonna
Yep.
get him on at the end of the year, and he's gonna tell us everything about playing junior hockey in El Paso, Texas, because I think that is gonna be.
He agreed to this?
Yeah, I talked to him today.
Oh yeah.
So at
That
the
is
end of
so
the year,
sick.
yeah, it's yeah. That yeah. So random aside, because you mentioned Jim Hiller, who yeah,
When you read
obviously
the word El Paso, do you also hear old El Paso, mucho fun tonight?
no, because I have religiously rewatched Breaking Bad enough that the parts of that show that are set in El Paso is what comes to my mind first.
Very fair. Very fair. Yes, LA Kings. I also have them at 4, but I give them wiggle room to hop up past a Vegas team that could get hampered with injuries yet again.
All right, let's talk about Bowman's boys.
Yes. Yes. You know, Aiden, I really wished you had watched the Amazon Prime doc because that would give me some extra context to talk about. So you're gonna have to watch this before we record our next episode. Just for anyone who's unaware of what I'm talking about, this is Face Off Inside the NHL, a 6-part series focusing on players through their journey through the dog days of the season and playoffs last year. It is an absolute banger, and if you are a hockey fan and you don't like it, I have no words for you. It is probably the best piece of NHL content ever made. I
High
put it ahead
praise.
of HBO 24/7.
Okay, yeah, James, do you put it ahead of like if I made a video that was the best of Ilya Bryzgalov from the HBO 24/7, does anything from this series beat that? Because Ilya Bryzgalov is like
Okay, Aiden,
unironically.
that's funny and interesting. This has the deepest level of passion and raw heart and soul from the game that I've probably
Listen,
ever captured.
did you not hear how Ilya Bryzgalov talks about the universe? You want to hear passion, man? Like that is a
I
man.
watched that live as it was coming out. Yeah.
Unironically, he's one of the funniest people in hockey. I love it. No, I'm very, I'm very excited to watch this Amazon talk.
But yes, Edmonton Oilers. Okay. I'm going to say right now, this is probably gonna make our listeners think I'm an idiot. Everyone has them being, oh my God, this is the best team in the league. They're gonna walk everyone and they're probably gonna go win the cup. I think there's gonna be some warts, some issues, and I have a weird feeling they don't get out of the second round. And yes, this is mostly regular season we're talking about. I think there's going to be some problems. Yes, everyone is so high on the fill in the blanks top 6 additions that are Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. I love both those players. Don't get me wrong. I'm not coming on here to talk smack about those guys. And realistically, do they really matter when the other 4 forwards are Nuge, McDavid, Hyman, and Draisaitl? Probably not. I just
So where's the hang up? Yeah.
feeling
What's
things aren't going to come together as well as we feel.
well, and you know what, James? It all comes down to the second pairing of defense, honestly. And I know it
Okay,
sounds like
that's where you have to let me get to.
yeah, and you can
This
you can go first. Now, Um, don't again, like you talk about Vegas adding a forward. Edmonton, I think, are adding a defenseman. I think Vancouver are adding a defenseman too. So as we talk about these last two
I think
Pacific
every
teams,
team we've just talked about wants Rasmus Anderson.
yeah, I don't think any of the Pacific Division gets Rasmus Anderson. I think
Nope.
you nailed it on the head with Nashville.
Yep. Or
Now I could see Edmonton giving up a lot for him. Um, yeah, you want to take it away. You can take it away with a second pairing for now. Now, again, I guess the preface here is this is not going to be the second pairing for 82 regular season games, period.
Okay, all right. Let me talk defense here. If you are building the ideal defense pair, a dream D pair,
It's the first pair of the
that
Oilers.
is Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard.
Yeah.
That's everything you could want on the ice at any point on the blue line. They will do anything, everything, and more that you ask of them. And when they make mistakes, they'll go do something awesome after. Now, before I even get to the second pair, I'm going to talk third pair. People liked Troy Stetcher early on in Vancouver, especially in the hockey card community. I don't
Sure,
know. Seems like a nice guy.
definitely.
That's all I've got on Troy Stetcher. He seems like a nice guy. He is kind of an NHLer.
Yeah, 6'7".
Yeah, to me, he should be a seventh D. He should be carried on roster pretty much at
Yeah.
all times. But on a cup contender that is supposed to walk everyone, no.
Okay, yeah. Fair.
Brett Kulak, that should be your seven. You're six or
Uh,
seven on this team. You're 6 or 7 on this team.
to me, he's good enough to play a game in, game out,
Yep.
for sure.
Okay, and now it's time for second pair.
Okay, now just to add as well, Edmonton didn't expect Josh Brown to show up in camp and be the worst defenseman to play hockey ever,
Yeah, he
because
was
that's what
supposed
he
to be on
did.
roster.
Yeah, well, and he had been declining in Arizona, but I kind of told myself, okay, it's a tough place to play. He was good in Arizona the last year. It was like not in the college arena, right? Like I kept making excuses for the guy, because his first like 2 seasons ago in Arizona, no, sorry, 3 seasons ago in Arizona, he was very good. He impressed the heck out of me. 2 seasons ago, he was okay. Last season, he wasn't very good. And then Edmonton threw 3 years at this guy, man. He's on a 3-year one-way contract. And he
What's he
showed up at
making?
$1 million a year, which is not terrible, but it's still not ideal
If
because
you're
he
a
looked,
cup contender, every dollar counts. Get
yeah,
rid of that.
he was bad. He was so bad in preseason, man. Like he didn't, yeah. So Stetcher should be this 6'7" because Brown and Kulak should kind of be the bottom pair. But Brown played so bad that now it's Kulak or Stetcher, or sorry, Kulak and Stetcher as a bottom pair bust basically because I don't really see much else coming to help him unless again it's a trade.
Aiden, set a mental timer. Give me 30 seconds on Nurse and Emberson.
Okay, go.
All right. Everyone knows what Darnell Nurse is. He is going to give you some amazing plays. He's going to do some physical things, and then he is going to be in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. And then you're going to be wondering why he's leading the rush and then can't get back. It is very tough for Oilers fans to watch. My good friend Pierce is an Oilers fan, and most of the time he is screaming at the TV. Darnell Nurse makes a lot of money. That sucks. Every time I say or hear the name Ty Emberson, someone says, "Oh, but I hear he should be pretty good." And then I ask, "Have you watched?" And they go, "No. I saw when McKinnon hit him really hard and barked at him, though." That's all they have.
All right,
That's
43
all anyone.
seconds. That was 43 seconds. I let you kind of finish the Emberson part because you took a while to get to him. Do you like Luke Shen?
Love Luke Shen.
Ty Emberson? Yeah, yeah.
But Luke Shen spent 12 years becoming the Luke Shen that has the experience and will to play that makes him Luke Shen.
No, and yeah, no, he's
Is this a
he's
raw Luke Shen?
yeah. Well, and a raw Luke Shen, I think raw Luke Shen had more offensive upside. To me, Emberson is a no nonsense, smart shutdown defenseman, and he's got a sneaky ability to sling the puck too. He's a solid passer. Um, I think if Noah Hannafin was the number three instead of Darnell Nurse, like if we're looking at the Pacific, if it was Hannafin and
Oh,
not Nurse,
oh,
Emberson's perfect. and this defense is perfect. It's
Okay, it's
the
not perfect because we still have the third pair.
Sure, but again, that I think the top four is fine, right? I think the top four is good enough for a team that wants to win the Stanley Cup if you have Hannafin instead of Nurse. But Darnell Nurse is, I don't know what descriptive word you want to plug in here. Like, I know people in Vancouver like to call Tyler Myers a chaos giraffe, and it's not
Yeah.
quite as applicable to Nurse. What you said about Sergachev one time, you called Sergachev a riverboat gambler. That's Nurse, and that's the thing with with him is if I was confident that he would play up to the standard of a number three defenseman on a contender night in, night out, I wouldn't be that concerned about the defense with Ty Emberson in the number four. My concern is you have Ty Emberson, who has, I believe, played 30 NHL games to this point, playing beside somebody who could literally do anything at any time while he's on the ice and without reason or explanation. So it's hard. I think Stuart Skinner is this is the year that he is like, okay, he is a top 15 at least starting goalie in the NHL. Like it's he's gonna settle in. Calvin Pickard was a good backup last year, but I think Skinner is the guy. I think Edmonton wins the Pacific. My breakout is Ty Emberson because I think him and Nurse are going to be so like they're desperate for that to work. And I think because of that, it's going to end up working in a way. Um, I'll let you go with Edmonton though. I do think they're going to win the Pacific.
I think Edmonton comes second in the Pacific again. I think they are probably better than the team that comes first in the Pacific. But dude, this team is so volatile. Remember last year? I mean, I understand this was before a coaching change, but this is a team that lost how many million games in a row and then won however many tens of games in a row. You don't know what you're going to get, but they have two of the top five best players on the planet, including the number one, undisputed number one. Connor McDavid is the best player on the planet.
I think
Um,
Draisaitl's four. Go on.
over under goals for Zach Hyman this year.
42.
I like it. I was going to say 41. Smart move. Um, my breakout player. This is going to sound kind of dumb because he's been in the NHL for a while, but I think with Evander Kane out, and I should mention this now before I forget. I like their forward group a hell of a lot more when Evander Kane comes back. It will be a while though. I think with Evander Kane out, Matthias Janmark ends up on one of the top two lines, filling in blanks so they can spread things out. I think he probably plays with Leon. And I think he scores a lot more goals than we expect, or gets a lot of second assists, even. Um, I don't know if the Victor Arvidsson or Jeff Skinner experiments are going to work out, but I do know that one of them probably will, and one of them will go horrendously because there's no way that both of them are just amazing. And in every fantasy league under the sun, someone has taken a flyer on them in their draft way too high. Someone is going to be left very disappointed when they end up struggling on a third or fourth line and have no power play time. I'm sorry, but it's just going to work that way. Love both players. One thing I will add, I don't want to see them go to the finals and lose. I don't think Corey Perry's heart can take it. If they go to the finals, I hope they win. If not, just don't let them get there. The Corey Perry storyline needs to end. I can't have another, oh my God, Corey Perry lost in the finals again. He's cursed, blah, blah, blah. I'm not into it. Last thing on the Oilers, Aiden, what can Vasily Podkolzin bring to this team?
Good bottom six forward. Like
Yeah.
cut and dry. Because you know what? I was saying I was saying this to a buddy of mine yesterday who's a big Oilers fan. Edmonton is going to benefit from the player that Rick Tocchet turned Vasily Podkolzin into
Right.
because Tocchet sunk his teeth into Podkolzin and was like, "This is who you need to be to play on this team." And then Podkolzin kind of became that guy, and then they traded him. So
Yeah.
now Edmonton gets this rugged, weight throwing, effective grind bottom six Vasily Podkolzin that I'm glad he'll be in Edmonton because I've always been cheering for the guy.
Last prediction for the Oilers, Matt Savoy gets traded before he becomes an impact player on this team, and he's what's used to get them another defenseman.
Yeah, I think if he survives this season, he's an Oiler.
Yep.
But I could see the like crap. Vancouver and Vegas are ahead of us, and Darnell Nurse is a minus 45 on the year. We need to do something, right? Like I could
Yeah.
see that happening. Okay, speaking of Vancouver, they finished first in the Pacific. And you have them first again by my
I have
math.
them first again.
Okay. So what do you like so much?
I think they are built like a nasty regular season team.
It's fair.
I think they are a couple playoff heartbreaks away from being more than that, and a couple different pieces away from being more than that. I love Jake DeBrusk on this team. He is part of the reason I have them being number one in this division. Um, if you have Besser with Miller and you have DeBrusk with Pedersen, I don't really care who the other winger is on either of those lines. And I love how that's why Daily Faceoff has Danton Heinen on the first line and Daniel Sprong on the second line. No disrespect to those guys, but those aren't really traditional top six forwards.
You know what? I actually bet you we see Heinen with Bluger on the fourth line and either Baines or Sherwood. And then we see Pia Suter with Miller and Besser. I would like Hoglander to be with Pedersen and DeBrusk and then Sprong with Miller and Besser personally. But again, that's kind of what I like about this group because you know what else is not here is Dakota Joshua. Dakota Joshua like has some upside offensively. And he's not going to be out for very long. So, like I look at this team, Atu Ratu has made the opening night roster, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, like
What's
I
his
don't,
ceiling?
pardon?
What's his ceiling this season?
This season, where he is, like a third line center who fills in on the second power play if you got some injuries.
Moving forward in the future, what's his ceiling?
I think he could be a solid 2C,
Hmm,
solid
cool.
2C, like yeah, like not a, not a guy that's, think Charlie Coyle.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah,
I like that.
Charlie Coyle level second line center where he does a bunch of stuff right and he's got skill and if you're talking about Coyle as a 1C, you're like, okay, maybe that's a little weak, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um
Aiden, I want to let you fully take the reins on the defense here, but I will say one more note on these forwards. If they have a healthy Hoglander, Dakota Joshua, and Connor Garland, I think that could be the best third line in the league.
yeah, the only thing would be the center. Like Joshua is not a great centerman.
But he could become that.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Um
pieces
but
are there.
but you know what? Suter or Bluger in that spot I'm completely fine with as well.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, the D, I look at this defense, James, and honestly, I'm like, this is okay. You
Yeah, thank you.
take anybody out of that top four and they're screwed, especially like not Tyler Myers. Like if Hughes or Hronik or Susie gets hurt, this team is horrible. That's bad. And and I love Carson Susie, man, but when a team that's supposed to win the Stanley Cup, and I'm saying Carson Susie's health is what their season is hinging on, that means their defense needs to improve, right? Like again, that maybe a team that wants to compete for a wild card spot, right? But they need I think they need a right side defense to play with them. I love the addition of Eric Brandstrom because I love upside. I'll bet on upside any day. If he has a crazy season in Abbotsford, I could see him getting a promotion, getting to play with Desharnais or something on the third pair. Um, I like the Desharnais edition as a six, but again, I wouldn't want him playing any higher than a six, and you don't
Yeah.
know what you're going to get out of Tyler Myers. Yeah, I think this team is some clarity on Thatcher Demko and a top four defenseman away from being a legit contender. I've got them second in the Pacific.
Okay. I have just read that Thatcher Demko is expected to be out 4 weeks.
Yeah, okay, but James, so yeah, he was
Don't hold your
6
breath.
months ago. Yeah, so
Don't hold your breath.
but and the other thing too is performance because this injury is not a he's going to be completely fine 100% in 4 weeks. It
No,
is
no.
he can play hockey in 4 weeks and what is the post knee problem Thatcher Demko going to be is the other thing here, right?
He's
I
probably
like
not second in Vezina voting Thatcher Demko.
but you know what? I would be so okay with Shelovs going 50-30 with him anyways. right?
Okay.
Let load manage Demko until the playoffs. Why not? Especially
Yeah.
with how good Shelov's played, especially with the fact that I'm 99% sure Shelov's is waiver exempt, and you have Lankinen. So that gives
Yeah.
you some flexibility, right? Because Lankinen can play games too. And if Shelov's is waiver exempt, you can like I'm not saying this would I'm not saying I want them to do this, but there could be the situation where you have like a paper transaction of him going down, right? When Demko comes back, just to like they have a lot of options with his goaltending trio. It's just, is any of them going to be good enough to win them a Stanley Cup? I don't know. Is it good enough that it's going to get them in the playoffs? Yeah, for sure. Archdeep Baines was really awesome in camp too, and I want to shout that out because we love undrafted players just ripping their way into the NHL because he made the opening night roster too.
Any other guys who could squirrel their way onto this team at points throughout the season if someone is struggling or injured?
If Lekuramaki pops off in Abbotsford, I think he was pretty close to making this team. So if we see him play a dozen games and be maybe a point and a half ish a game and almost, like 9, 10 goals in 12 games or something, I could see him getting called up. I'd
Is he
probably
a
rather
Rick
him.
Tocchet player?
No, he's not. No, definitely not. Not yet, right? But I don't think Sprong is either, right? So like you can Hoglander wouldn't have been until like last year, right? Like you can say that, and I'm sure that's the point of the AHL team, not just for these players to have a place to play, but for these players to be made into the players that the pro club wants them to be. So Paul Colson potentially. Otherwise, I don't
Colson's
think.
gone.
Oh, sorry, Lekuramaki potentially. I'm still looking at the Oilers roster here in front of me. Um, yeah, Lekuramaki potentially. Niels Oman always gets his fair share of a few games.
Yeah.
Phil DiGiuseppe's a talk it favorite, but I actually
I
think this
like him a
team.
lot.
I think this team is deep enough now that it's kind of pushed him out. Which,
Aw.
like, it, well, let's trade him to San Jose and let him play it on the third line. That's kind of what I think about the guy.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I have them in second. Their breakout to me, like I look at this team, I think DeBrusque could score 35 goals with
Same.
Pettersson. Yeah.
Same. We are in the same boat here completely.
If not DeBrusque, this line of Hoglander, Ratu, and Garland that this has, Ratu could start munching some points in the middle of those two guys.
Totally.
Um, but a healthy Pius Suter, I think, pushes him down. So it's Ratu the way it's set up right now, but I think long term DeBrusque is the guy that you're going to see take the biggest step forward.
Definitely. I mean, DeBrusque gets power play time. That will be the thing. DeBrusque on the power play is something Canucks fans are going to absolutely love, especially with the sight lines in Rogers Arena, which is a very niche thing that a lot of people wouldn't understand. But if you are in the cheaper lower bowl spots, which are those corners, you have such perfect sight lines to right in front of and around the net. It is awesome watching a power play in the lower bowl in Rogers. It's just set up perfectly. I mean, it's obviously not going to be that good in every seat, but I've had a lot of fun watching power plays, and I think I'm going to have a good time watching Jake DeBrusk motor around, especially because I got my 16-year-old brother an IOU for a Canucks game of his choice this season. So I will be going to at least one game, hopefully a handful. But yes, that is the Pacific Division for us. Aiden, I think it's time we move to the Central, unless you have anything else on the Pacific.
Nope. Yeah, let's do it. Chicago's the first team up in the Central from the bottom to the top.
Yes, Aiden, let's lead things off with the Chicago Blackhawks. One of the NHL's worst teams over the past 2 years, but I will say very, very substantial, yet also kind of marginal improvement. I don't think there's a single part of their roster that doesn't feel better than it did last year. I mean, I guess goaltending is pretty much the same. That's net even. It's still Peter Mrazek minding the pipes there. Um, but Aiden, I feel like there's a lot of Connor Bedard support here. How do you feel about this Hawks roster?
Yeah, I'm optimistic because they look like they took a pretty significant step forward roster wise. Unfortunately, what Chicago's going to run into is I don't think the step forward is really a step over anybody, right?
Yeah.
It's coming. right? It's coming through Frank Nazar, who I thought was going to make the team and needs some time, which is fine. It's going to come from Connor Bedard, who's going to take a huge step forward this year. I think Taivo Teravainen was a smart signing. I think Tyler Bertuzzi was a smart signing. Are these guys going to still be here when the team competes? I don't think so, but this
I think
team,
Bertuzzi will.
yeah, I could see it. Especially, he'd be a solid winger for Bedard long
Yeah.
term, right? With another one of their more talented guys. This is a team that is going to be very good with a lot of guys that aren't on this roster, including Kevin Korchinski, interestingly enough, James.
Yeah, the what I read was that they want Korchinski and Nazar to completely dominate the AHL.
And they
They want
will.
to see that before they can come up and do it here.
They're going
I
to,
think
man.
I think Korchinski really struggled for a lot of last year. You could see the bright spots, but he will be a fixture on the left side of this defense here, and that's why you see Alex Martinez as a stopgap for this season. Korchinski probably will come up post deadline. Martinez is on a 1 year deal. So is TJ Brody. So yeah. Aiden, there are a few things that I think are going to go really well here. The Hawks did name Nick Foligno captain. That is just temporary, but he is one hell of a leader in the NHL and has been for quite some time. So I think it probably was the right move just for a quick little stopgap, just to put less pressure on Bedard, let him find all his own game while he can, because the reality is he is still a kid. Like expecting him to lead a group full of adults, I don't feel would have been right. I think if this team was filled with a lot of young guys, like the Korchinskis, like the Nazars, like an Oliver Moore, like a Lev Shunov, you probably would see him be captain. But I don't think Connor Bedard as captain of Craig Smith, Pat Maroon, Nick Foligno, Jason Dickinson, Taylor Hall, Alec Martinez, TJ Brody, Connor Murphy, I don't think that makes sense at this stage of the game. Like the guy hasn't even played a full season by all accounts yet. He missed a few games last year, but it will happen. It is going to come. I do really like Teravainen. I do like Bertuzzi. I can't wait to see what Taylor Hall can do healthy if he matches up with Bedard on the power play or something like that. But Philip Kurashev, he's a player. Aiden, what do you think he can put together this season? What is a good season for Kurashev and what is realistic?
Last season.
Okay. That
Yeah,
was
I mean,
that's
36 assists last season. That's probably the number that I'd be like ha- 36 assists I think is a little bit over, but I think he could score more than 18 goals. So around 50 to 54 points again is a good range for him. Chicago, yeah, like I don't think I disagree with anything you said. I think this team has all the pieces in place to continue to improve. It's hard to pick a breakout candidate that isn't Connor Bedard. I could see Alex Vlasic taking a step forward individually, but he's going to struggle with the personnel around him.
okay. Talk
Um,
about Alex Vlasic because most people in the hockey world don't understand or know why he was paid that money. But you and I have had this conversation. Please fill us in.
again, it's much like he's not nearly as offensively capable as some of the guys that you would think of it as top pairing defensemen, but high end, this guy could be kind of like a Matthias Ekholm, honestly. Like he's 6'6",
Yeah.
which he doesn't really look 6'6" when he's skating because his edge work is good. His stick is so good, man. Like it sounds like such a poke checking a guy sounds like such a silly skill to be really good at, but
Mm.
Vlasic uses his reach really well, and a lot of guys with a long stick need guys to be like away from them a little bit. And so they'll actually give them some space. And a lot of times, because these players are bigger, the space is enough for that player to burn them. Well, Vlasic skates well enough, his gap control is good enough that he doesn't actually give anybody all that much space. And then he'll just chop the puck off your stick. Like you don't think it's coming and then it's gone. Um, he's a solid top four defenseman right now, and he could still get better. So I know that he signed a long-term contract before he'd done much in the NHL, but so is everybody else. So it's this wasn't a weird one, right? Like
For sure. I think it's just the unfamiliarity with him for everyone.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. Like Matthias Samuelson felt like he was signed before anyone knew, like signed to a long-term deal before anyone knew.
Mikey Anderson a little bit
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly. It just one of those kinds of things. So you adding some color to it, I feel is pretty good.
No, he's a good player, man. Like this isn't this wasn't a bad bet by any means. I think he's long-term third, number three guy on this team.
I think my breakout candidate, it feels like a cop out, but also I feel like a lot of people don't have this penciled in. I think you see a real return to form from Seth Jones.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. I think having some stability there, having not a revolving door of Jason Dickinson's hopping onto the power play is going to
Yeah,
help. I think kind of getting some chemistry with Bedard at the points there. I think they've played together a bit now on the power play. It's going to help out. And I think playing with a guy like Alec Martinez is really going to help him as well. I think for Jones, it's been a weird few years, and this is a guy who was a top pair defenseman at one point, and he's being paid like a top pair defenseman. I think he can find his game again. Do I think he's going to be at his peak level again? Probably not, but I think he can get close to it, and that's what I'd like to see and what I think we will see this year. Fantasy owners rejoice.
Bedard over under goals.
43 and a half.
Wow, I was gonna say 46. So again, like
I
we're
don't
back
have him
to
scoring 50.
no, I would be surprised, but I think part of it is how many games A does he play, and then B does he play with capable line mates, right? Like, and it could be any combination of your Taylor Hall, Teravainen, Kurashev, McKay. I don't know about Mikheyev, but Bertuzzi,
I
Foligno
want Holland
potentially.
Bertuzzi.
Yeah, and if Hall and Bertuzzi are his line mates for 82 games, I think he scores 50 goals, honestly. But
If Holland Bertuzzi are his line mates, I've got him like 44, 45 goals and then like 50 assists.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't think he cracks 100 points this year. I think he gets close to it, though.
Dude had 39 assists in 60 some games playing with the guys he was playing with last year, right? Like that's that can't be ignored.
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of guys in the NHL are a little more ready to expect what he's going to bring, though. So,
Yeah,
like,
that
he's,
always happens with rookies
yeah.
a little bit, but I'm sorry, man. If you didn't know what this guy was at the start of last season, like what rock are you living under, right? Like his game was out there for everybody to see, and it
Yeah.
came so as advertised that I don't know if we're gonna see too much regression because of that.
I'm not saying the guy has to reinvent the wheel, but I think, like, development in his game is expected. He's going to have to keep getting better everywhere,
Yeah,
because he is your prototypical generational player. Like if he doesn't continue getting better at a rapid pace, there will be all those questions like what is he really? Is he as good as advertised? I'm not doubting him at all in any way. I'm just saying we do need to see more development from him because that's the standard that's been set by those generational players before him. Blackhawks bottom of the division.
yeah,
Yeah, gotcha. Ready to move on?
yeah. Who's? Oh, I guess Utah's next.
The Utah Hockey Club, Aiden. Man, you know what? I love this lineup. I love it. I I find myself wanting to cheer for them.
Yeah, I think that Ron Francis should kind of take a look at what they've done over the last two seasons in terms of like how to make a even Buffalo to an extent, because I think this is how you make a struggling but promising team into a ready to step into the playoffs team. Um, the move, I don't know what the move's gonna do, right? Like I have seen people speculating like, oh, is it gonna help or hurt them? And it's like at the end of the
I don't
day,
think it's going to change anything.
no, me neither.
Wait, long-term
Because
success, yes.
yeah, no, I can see it changing the, even just the does a player want to play there? And
Yeah.
when it's a shiny new organization, the answer is more likely to be yes. Clayton Keller's the captain. again, I've never been a huge fan of the guy, but I can totally see why he's so successful at what he does
And
because
he gets
he's
better every year.
yeah, and he's so talented. And I think he's found a home on left wing. I really hated to watch him play center because it was bad. But him on left wing playing with Nick Schmaltz and pretty much any of these centers is going to be a pretty gross line. Like it could be Hayton, it could be Cooley, it could be Bukestad. Like it could be any number of guys, and I think it would be okay. Like you have Alex Kerfoot on this team too. I don't think he's going to end up in the top six, but he'll be there. Um, Dylan Gunther, I think, explodes this year.
Explodes means what?
Well, he had 18 goals in 45 games last year. And I don't think expecting that pace over 82 games is incorrect. So I think 35 goals out of Gunther is coming because at the
Okay.
end of the day, like I he is so good on the power play. You have a guy now in Sergachev or Dursey, so it doesn't matter who's going to be passing him the puck. Logan Cooley's going to take a step forward. Clayton Keller is who he is. Like I think this team is so served just to have a guy ready to fill the net, right? Just to have that goal scorer because there's so many guys here that are playmakers and that are play drivers and that are periphery guys and that are good passers. But Gunther's the one that is just like, no, he is just going to like a machine put the puck in the back of the net. Josh Doan's got a lot of good upside. I don't think he's a top six forward this year. I think he's a bottom six forward this year, but I think he's a solid bottom six forward for them this
Yeah,
year.
I'm in the same boat, but I think he could be one of those 40-point bottom six forwards.
Yeah, yeah. The defense is completely different. We, I think Sergachev and Dursey is an interesting pair. I don't know
I
if they're
think it's
gonna.
a great pair, but
Yeah,
I don't want that. I want Sergachev and Marino. Marino balances out Sergachev. Did you watch Marino in Jersey?
yeah, yeah.
Marino in Jersey is a legitimate everywhere on the ice impact player, as in
Okay.
he is incredible one-on-one. He's great at breaking up a rush, great stick, awesome first pass, and he can help the breakout through the neutral zone as well. This is not Pittsburgh John Marino, who admittedly was pretty solid but had a million warts in his game. Not a million, a handful of warts in his game. I'm sorry, John Marino. Not a million. That was a ridiculous over exaggeration. There were a handful of problems in his game. And in Jersey, he was a very bright, dependable spot on a messy blue line.
Yeah,
I think he's not a first pair defenseman on his own, but with a number one D, he is that complement. You know what I mean?
yeah. Sergachev, Dursey, and Marino is going to be the top three, period.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this, I don't want to say a lot of this team's success hinges on the bottom three defensemen, but if Ian Cole, Juuso Valimaki can be good enough on that left side to be like a 4 and a 6 or a 3 and a 5. I think that goes a long way. I've got way more faith in Valimaki. I don't know how
Valimaki is
long.
a second pair D for me. Like seeing him play in the last 2 years, he is that kind of guy. He can play 20 minutes a night for you.
Yeah, the concern I'd have would be the right side. Be like, is it? It's got to be Kesselring, you think, right?
Well,
With
like
Valimaki.
I go Sergachev, Marino, Valimaki, Dursey.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Hey, and then Kesselring would go with Cole on the last pair.
If so, maybe Bobby Bortuzzo.
Yeah, well, Kesselring and Bortuzzo are both righties, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would
Like
have
Ian Cole's
Kesselring as the
probably,
5. I don't think Cole's the 5.
yeah, Ian Cole is probably having to play. That is a thing.
Yeah, unfortunately for them. I
He
like the
has been
goaltending.
solid though.
Yeah, 1A, 1B is good in this instance. Ingram and Vemelka, one of them at a time needs to figure it out. I think that's fine. Like again, I don't think we're gonna see long term this be the be all end all solution to goaltending in Utah, but I think they're good enough for now. I like their prospects a lot, and James, like I kind of think this is the start this year for this team.
I
This is
agree.
the start of them being a player. And by start, I don't mean they're gonna finish in the top three of this division. I've got them finishing in fifth, and I've got them taking eight in the wild card spot.
Okay, we're in the same boat, and we're in the same boat because on my end, they have a playoff ready bottom six.
Yeah, I like that too.
Their bottom six includes a Lawson Krause, a Josh Doan, a Kevin Stenlund, who was an ace on the PK for the cup-winning Florida Panthers.
Jack
Liam
McBain
O'Brien
too.
adds some punch, Jack McBain, and then 20 goal scorer Michael Carcone.
Yeah, you could see. Yeah, like Keller to me, Keller, Cooley, Schmaltz, Hayton, Gunther, and Michelli are probably their top six, and that means you got Bukestad and Kerfoot too. Like that's a lot of solid depth there, a lot of good
I
players.
honestly think, because there'll be an injury here and there, but I think O'Brien probably plays like 50, 60 games. And then I'll be honest, I've got Kerfoot as a 13th forward here.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's the setup I've got, and I think this team is going to wreak havoc on bad teams and then have a hard time against very complete teams. I think there are going to be some growing pains on the odd night, but I love what's coming together, man. I think this is a dangerous team, and then just you wait for their prospects on the blue line to come in.
Dmitry Simashev.
Yeah,
Oh, he's a good
one,
player, man.
there's one
I
more,
know
right?
I know that it was like cool to dunk on that pick, but I got it, man. I
Yeah,
totally got it. That was no, he's sweet. No, there's not really another defenseman, but they've got Iginla.
yeah, yeah.
Iginla's the guy more so.
Oh, Maverick Lamoureux. That's the other one I was thinking.
Yes, yes. Maverick Lamoureux is going to be a very solid number five.
Yeah, I'm done with Victor Soderstrom.
Me too.
That was what was that GM they had who only cared about advanced stats? The really young one.
Oh, the one that like got them suspended because he was like illegally draft combining guys, right?
Yeah.
Was it Chaika? Am I remembering that
Yeah, John
right?
Chaika.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. His thing for like a year was that he only cared about advanced stats. So he's like, "Oh, Victor Soderstrom is the he's a money ball style player. He gets pucks into the offensive zone."
And
And
then
then
yeah, and then it didn't work.
yeah, no, not at all. And he was a high draft pick at what, like 8?
I think 12, but still
12?
bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. He shouldn't have gone there. But
No,
yeah.
no.
Regardless, breakout player for me is Logan Cooley.
Yeah, I like that.
52 points. That's my benchmark.
52 points for Cooley.
He's going to be centering a second line that is probably going to feature Dylan Gunther.
No. That's low, man. He had 44 points last year in like a pretty solid rookie year. I think Cooley might figure for 60 points this year, man.
I just don't have a million guys having a ton of points. And the reason that is a really good number for me is I think for most of the game, you're going to have Sergachev or Dursey on the ice. That's taking up one of those two possible assists.
Okay.
I think, and then I think also that third line is going to play a lot. I think this
Yeah,
is
no,
not a team that has 40-point players on their third line. Like Cooley to me is probably going to play like 15 minutes a night.
okay. No, I think he's counted on significantly more than you do. I think he's going to be counted on. Um,
The other reason I have him lower is there's so much to compete with for power play time.
yeah,
There's a
James, I
lot
just
of outs there.
listen, I look at this Utah team and again, it kind of strikes me as Chicago where it's like, yeah, you want to be better, but I don't think they've lost the plot in terms of what's important here. And I think what's important here is the youth. So I
Yep,
would and I think Cooley is their guy down the middle. Like I think more so than Barrett Hayton, Cooley is going to be prioritized in terms of making sure that he's developing properly. I think he's going to be
for
in a
sure,
top
for
six role
sure.
all season. Um,
But they're in no rush.
yeah, no, I understand. But regardless, I do have them in the playoffs at five,
Me too.
which
Me
is a
too.
jump. So next
And
is
then I have them getting
Minnesota.
mercilessly gobsmacked by the Dallas Stars. Just
I have them,
absolutely obliterated. Like it is going to be a sweep. It is going to
yeah,
hurt.
It's well, I mean, it would be that or Vancouver, I guess, in your standings. I could see the Oilers also dismantling them.
Yeah.
Um, okay, next up is Minnesota, the Wild, who have such a great defense, and then uh, despite that, I
Are you
don't.
about to talk smack about their offense?
No, dude, I'm gonna talk smack about the fact that what is this team missing? Because I don't think this is a playoff team, but I can't even sit here and tell you why. Like,
I
okay,
was just about to say that. Like I could see them only winning 30 games.
yeah, but this is a good roster. Like, what is missing? They have an amazing top line. Kirill Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy are going to
Uh
combine for 200
Eriksson
points
Ek
this year.
Eriksson Ek doesn't play with Kaprizov though.
It was Rossi last year. It was Eriksson Ek 2 years ago.
And it was Hartman before that.
Yeah, it could have been
It
Hartman.
has been
Zuccarello. Zuccarello's played there too. Um,
Zuccarello will play with Kaprizov for the
I,
duration of his time on that team.
well, and Zuccarello loves that power play, man. Zuccarello really thrives on their power play.
Yeah.
But however they end up lining up, and then it's Eriksson Ek, Boldy, and Hartman or Johansson or something on that second line. Regardless, this top six should be good enough. And this defense, like Faber, Brodin, Spurgeon,
Wait,
Middleton.
Aiden, I don't want you going to defense yet because you haven't talked about their bottom six. And I don't have this as a playoff team either. But when you have a bottom six that features Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, Yakov Trenin, Jacob Lauko, who I love, Freddie Gaudreau, who I really enjoy, and then a very, very odd ace in the hole in Marat Kuznetsov.
I wonder if Liam Ogren breaks in. I think
Yeah,
we see Danila Yurov eventually this season by the end of the year come
that
back.
one confuses me. That one I don't know if it's going to happen, but it feels like it should.
Yeah, I think Yurov at the end. I think it's going to be him and Nikishin coming over at the end of the year. Um,
But like that, those are bottom six forwards who lug you through an 82 game season and into playoffs. And none of us have anything bad to say about Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Boldy. I'm not super high on Marco Rossi. I know I'm in the minority here to most people. Everyone else seemed that I talked to seems to be super high on him if they know who he is. They either don't know who he is or they're really high on him.
well, and to me, being super high on Rossi, like he had 21 goals and 40 points last year. I like him a lot, but I also think realistically we shouldn't be expecting mm,
I think
55
that's what he
points.
is. I think he's a
55
point.
points. 55 points would be a really good year, I think, for Rossi this year.
That'd be an incredible year.
Yeah. So but honestly, James, I get the expectation that he is regarded a little bit higher than that, and maybe eventually, but not yet. Um, okay, but Jay, like this defense is unreal, dude. This top four, Brodin and Faber is like drool worthy. I don't know how
Yep.
else to put it. Like Brock Faber's a superstar, period.
Yep.
If you don't know it yet, you're gonna know it soon. And then Spurgeon and Middleton is like a shutdown dream.
And
Like,
Spurgeon's great offensively too.
yes, the goaltending, and they have Fleury and they have Gustafson. You know what my breakout candidate is Jesper Wallstedt, and I know that's a
Oh,
completely
by the way, he just signed a 2 year deal.
Wallstedt, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
2.2 per.
yeah. So that tells
Long
me
term
that
roster.
obviously this is the last year of Fleury, is what that contract means.
I
But I could
wouldn't
see.
even hate if they traded away Gustafson.
I was gonna say I wouldn't hate if they traded away either of them this season and then promoted Wallstedt. Um, but regardless, James, I still think they're gonna finish sixth. I still think they're gonna finish sixth in this division.
My dude, I got him at 7.
Oh, you got too much faith in the Blues, but
No, I don't. I just don't have any faith in this team for, again, reasons I can't explain.
yeah, no, I mean, and Kaprizov's good for 100 points, right? Boldy's gonna get
Yeah,
75.
until he leaves for free agency in like, what is it, 2 years?
We'll see, obviously. I don't think
He will not be a member of the Minnesota Wild in 3 years. I will bet money on that.
I would concur. Okay, next is St. Louis.
Hold on. There's one
Yeah,
thing we
who's
have
your
to talk about.
breakout? I need your
Two
breakout
things.
too.
Two things. I think the third pair of John Merrill and Zach Bogosian, as much as I am a Zach Bogosian fan, I think that's the worst D pair in the NHL.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was just
And
gushing
that
over
is
their
on the
defense.
ice for
Um,
probably 14 minutes a game.
Damon Hunt is going to play, dude.
I don't know who that is.
He's 22 years old. He was, I think, an early third rounder, and he had a really good year in Iowa last year. So I think it ends up being him and Bogosian. I actually
Is
don't
this
think
guy
Merrill.
going to be much better than Merrill this
Yeah,
year?
yeah, because
Okay.
at least he can move. Like the Merrill Bogosian problem is you have two guys that like genuinely I might walk in beer league, right? So just for speed. So like it's
Peyton, I'm sorry. As much as that's funny, you're not walking them.
oh
That's
no, dude. Oh, absolutely not, man. I'd blow a
when
tire
was
before I'd
when
get
was the
past him.
last time you actually did a crossover? Because I
Oh,
haven't done one in
oh,
years.
buddy. You know what? Too
I'll
many.
tell you right now, I could it would probably take me an hour to successfully do a crossover, and I would hurt myself twice at least on the way.
Well, I think I've talked about this on on this podcast before. Again, I would have shown you the video of me and Cody from the Bulldogs out there in gear doing like a skills competition. I was so scared, dude, that when we were doing the lap, I was gonna go down on every corner. And I did execute the crossovers, but that was by far the most stressful part for me was like staying on my feet at speed around a corner after not playing competitive ice hockey for a couple of years. But Hunt and Bogosian's a better third pair for me. And Zeev Boyum, I think, has this year at Denver, and then he makes the team next year, right?
Okay.
I think he comes. So I think it's a Damon Hunt band-aid, and then they're gonna get something nice from Middleton, and then it'll be you'll see Boyum play with Spurgeon.
How many points did Matt Boldy have last year? 70 something?
I can find out. You caught me off
Uh,
guard.
my my breakout candidate is Matt Boldy hitting another gear.
Okay, he had 70 last year, just shy of.
Okay. I think he's an 85 point guy this year.
I like that.
Yeah. I don't know if that really should be a breakout, but I think he goes from like really dominant top six forward to like this guy is a surefire first liner on damn near any team. That's kind of where I stand. Um yeah, time to move on.
Yeah, St. Louis.
Okay, before we just start St. Louis, the whole yeah, time to move on. That really describes how I feel about Minnesota. And again, I can't tell you why. If you're walking down the street sometime this week and you figure it out, give me a call because I haven't figured it out. Um, one other stat that I just randomly noticed that I would like to bring up is in the Central Division last year, Arizona, now Utah, had the second worst goal differential in the division at minus 18. Chicago had the worst at minus 111.
So it was a good division, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. And expect this division to keep being much of the same. Okay, St. Louis, the Blues. I take Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich off this team, and this is a bottom three worst team in the NHL.
Yeah, you know what? This is going to be bad because this defense is not going to hold up. And I think Jordan Binnington is not going to hold up.
You hate Jordan Binnington, I will not hear any slander.
Yeah, and I just don't see him being able to overcome a defense that has, by my count, four guys that are due for even more regression, and they've already regressed significantly from their primes. Like
Okay, unless you watch the Blues, you don't know how good Justin Falk still is.
Justin Falk is a sweet puck moving guy, but I don't think he's gonna be good with Philip Broberg. I think Broberg is better suited for Parayko, but I don't think Nick Leddy's good. I don't think Nick Leddy's good enough to be in this top four. I don't think Ryan Suter's good enough to be in this top six, and he is. I think you've got to put P.O. Joseph in there
I was
somewhere
just
just
about
to
to
have,
say P.O.
yeah,
Joseph. He's coming
like,
for at least most of the season
yeah,
because one of these guys is getting injured before puck drop of the
well,
first game.
and Torrey Krug is already injured, and Scott Prunovich, if he's not, yeah, it's going to be the second somebody goes within a cubic mile of him. But
Also, the fall off of Scott Perunovich's potential and him being made of glass bones and paper skin needs to be studied.
What did I text you? I texted you about Caleb Addison's fall off
Yeah.
the other day.
Yeah, that's a
It
bad.
wasn't Perunovic. I thought it was Perunovic for a second. Yeah, he's 26 now, right? Like it's at the point where it's potential that is just gonna kind of go down as maybe if he wasn't hurt.
I've got a really good season from Broberg here. I'll be honest. I think he's going to be given. Okay, in Edmonton, he was given a short leash. If we're keeping the dog owner reference going here, they're gonna bring him to a beach or an open field and let him run free and see what he does.
Well, and they have to because the rest of their defense it was born in the 1800s, right? Like he's the only guy there
Okay.
that's
Oh,
gonna like that he's the only guy that you can even remotely bank on some upside from on that defense this season. And yeah, you're talking about Bushnevich and Thomas. I think I might be a little bit more high on the forwards if those are the only two guys you're picking out. Dylan Holloway's my breakout candidate.
I think
I
he's gonna be great.
yeah, I like him, Thomas, and Neighbors as an idea for a line. And Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, and anybody else on that second line would be effective. It could be Joseph or Bolduc, Sod, Shen, Torpchenko, Texier, like Kapanen even. Like there's a bunch of guys here that could potentially fill that role. St. Louis for me, James, like it's this is a very important stretch of a few seasons because if you look at what this team has coming, Jimmy Snuggerud, Dalibor
I
Dvorsky,
was
Adam
just about to
Juracek,
talk about Snuggerud.
yeah, Otto Stenberg, Theo Lindstein. Again, I think Bolduc makes the team this year. Like, this is a team that has managed to accrue a good number of players
Up front.
up front that are young enough that I actually think they could pull off a retool here. But they got to get working on this defense, and I think this year is going to be like the big flashing lights to Doug Armstrong if he doesn't get fired that like, hey, this defense is not NHL caliber anymore. You have to change it.
Aiden, honestly, I think this defense is doing what it's supposed to do, which is letting them accumulate all of these prospects. This defense is doing exactly what you like, but just in a more expensive way. That's
If
all.
that's the idea, I just like to see a little bit more of a seller's mentality for some of these forwards.
Okay, okay, but did you need to do a seller's mentality when you are going the retool method? Obviously, they're going the retool method if they have Thomas, Buchnevich, and Kyrou all signed for decent term. Like, you can retool with those guys there. Braden Shen, Justin Falk, and Colton Parayko will all come off the books in a few seasons. Torrey Krug, I have no faith in him ever playing again. It's early onset arthritis mixed with other things.
That's
I
tough.
I hate to say it, but that's that's pretty bad. That's really bad. And they have a ton of other stopgap pieces. A fourth line of Nathan Walker, Radek Faksa, and Alexei Toropchenko is so annoying. I feel really bad for teams' third pairs. You're just gonna get hit all the time. Texier, great guy to give a chance to. That's kind of like the Colorado Avalanche method, where you add in some Grigorenkos and Nichushkins and Yakupovs, and you're like, well, one of them's gonna work. Matthew Joseph, I like the hustle from him. I think his wheels could kind of take some slack off Braden Chen. I like that. Giving Kasperi Kapanen another chance. I mean, he's played fine there. But yeah, like you're super concerned about this defense, but you're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be good. They're supposed to pick between 5 and 10 again. That is the game plan.
Yeah, and
And they're
I've got
supposed to
them.
keep accumulating draft picks. Like you're going to see a Matthew Joseph and a Nick Leddy get traded for small things, and then someone else comes up. Um, Pencil in Jake Neighbors for 30 this year. He scored a sneaky, what was it, 21 last year? Yeah. Jake Neighbors is very good. I do think he is going to end up being traded by the time this team is ready. Because when this team's ready, you're going to have an Otto Stenberg, you're going to have a Jimmy Snuggerud, you're going to have a Dalibor Dvorsky, plus whatever other awesome players they get in the next couple years. But the thing is, Binnington has a lot of fight in him. These defensemen, while having wheels that are not new anymore, like they need a tire change, um, they're not going to win you a ton of games, but they will keep them competitive. These forwards, Robert Thomas is. I've got Robert Thomas as a top 15 center in the NHL, probably like 15. He's very good, and I think he's starting to go from underrated to accurately rated, and he gets better every year. This is like how I was talking about Clayton Keller, but this guy's a true surefire center who does everything that a center should and does. Um, I don't love Jordan Kyrou. I'm sorry. I think he's a very flashy player. I think he's very interesting and probably one of the best skaters in hockey. Like his stride is money. But um again, if you look at the term on his contract, this is a guy who will be traded before this retool is over. This team is currently being built around Thomas and Bushnevich and whatever prospects work. And you know what? I don't hate that. I've seen way worse top line centers on teams that have done damage in playoffs than Robert Thomas. And he hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. He could keep getting better. Um, I have them exactly where we mentioned. And they're going to be sixth in this division, barely ahead of Minnesota in my eyes, and miss playoffs. They're probably going to win like 41 games, which is two less than last year. And they're going to miss playoffs and pick it like between 8 and 12. I don't know, something like that. Um, this team will be exactly where they are for 3 or 4 years, but when they hop out of it, they're going to be pretty good. I think at least if they keep doing what they're doing. Keep watching Jake Neighbors. His shot's lethal.
Next is Nashville.
Yeah. Next is Nashville. Aiden, you and I have both played lots of franchise mode. You ever do that one thing where you add in a ton of free agents because you're frustrated that your team won't do anything, and then your team looks awesome on paper and then goes like 5-12 in the first 17 games, and you're scared to keep going?
Is that what you're expecting here?
No, I think that's not what's going to happen.
Well, they only really added what, three high-profile guys? Like it was
Yep.
Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea. So it wasn't like a roster overhaul, and this was a roster that did really well. This Barry Trotz, Andrew Brunette system that they run is kind of unbelievable.
Yep.
If you're, I know there's a lot of hockey nerdyism in this podcast, but I think dissecting the way the Nashville Predators play in the offensive zone might be a little bit much even for us. So, pay attention to what they do on the power play and in the offensive zone because it's very creative and it's very, very effective in maximizing this whole team. And I think Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea, for that matter, are all going to really benefit from the way this team plays. I have them in second, man. I'll say that right off the top in the Central Division. I think this team is very good. I think Juuse Saros is going to be a Vezina nominee this year. He has been in the past, and I'm really high on him.
That's it.
Roman Josi is just going to have another unreal season. And the top six to me, Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, Stamkos, Novak, Marchessault, Evangelista could probably sneak in there at some point. Um, that's very strong. I think that's going to score a lot of goals, and the defense to me again is still definitely good. I think they could do with another top four guy, but you mentioned
Oh, you
Rasmus
mean Rasmus
Anderson.
Anderson?
Yeah, yeah. Scott Wedgwood is a good backup. I like the return they got for Askarov. All around, I'm a big fan of everything. I struggle with a breakout candidate. The whole team could take a pretty significant step forward this year. Like
Tommy,
yeah,
Tommy,
it's been Tommy
Tommy.
Novak. It feels like I picked Tommy Novak last year for them. Plus, I don't know how many more than 45 points Novak's gonna get. Like, I still think
Oh, he's
45
gonna
to
have 60.
okay. So is he your breakout guy? Because I was thinking maybe Evangelista, but I genuinely don't really know here.
I think Evangelista is what he is.
I
I
could
think
see
he's a
him.
sick, creative, play driving third liner.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I could see him getting 50 points, which I think would have been a bigger jump than Novak by a bit. So yeah. Anyhow, am I crazy for saying they're ahead of Colorado?
Um, they're more complete,
Yeah.
but one thing that could put them behind Colorado is four of their top six forwards could all take a step back. You could see O'Reilly, Nyquist, Marchessault, and Stamkos all get worse by the time puck drops to start the season.
Well, and Forsberg went like 48 goals, 46 assists or something.
Forsberg is disgusting, and I think he would have done this multiple times already if he wasn't getting injured all the time.
I completely agree with you. My thing is more, is he is the numbers going to be the same? Because I think he's going to play just as good, but you nailed it that in his career, this is the first time it's happened, and he's always been this good. So your point is basically my point that the production theoretically could very easily continue, but could easily also fall a little bit.
Totally. I will say the nice thing with Ryan O'Reilly is his game doesn't rely on speed, so you don't have to worry about him losing a step and him playing any worse. He is that guy. Like he's the kind of guy who could still be a top six center when he's 39. He's just kind of built like that. That's his playing style, and he will outwork most people. Um, you know, while we're talking about them shopping for right-handed defenseman, I wouldn't hate them getting a middle six center and dropping Colton Sissons to the fourth line. I really like Colton Sissons, but if he's on your fourth line, you've got a damn good fourth line. Penciled in right now, there's Mike McCarron. He's a 4C. I think that's fine. But I think for this team to be a legit cup contender, you need a little bit more depth up the middle. Um, I'm going to rattle through their players, and I want you to give me a goal total prediction because I'm counting it up in my head, and this could be crazy. Philip Forsberg,
40,
Ryan O'Reilly,
25,
Gus Nyquist,
20,
Steve Stamkos.
30.
Okay, so we're already at like 115.
Yeah.
Tommy Novak like 10 because it's going to be all assists.
Yeah, I was going to say 15.
Yeah, okay. So let's say we're at 130. Marchie.
Probably 25. Like I know he hit 40 last year, but probably 25.
That was a contract year 40.
Yeah.
Love his game, and I will never talk smack about a guy who willed his way to stardom. But okay, Evangelista,
15, I think this year.
Sissons,
Yeah, 5 to 10.
Tomasino.
Tomasino's hard. I
Yep.
want to say 15, 20, but it could easily just not
He's
work
more
for
of a
him this
passer
year.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we've got over 200 goals, and we haven't talked about the fact that Yossi's probably going to have 20 as well.
Brady Shea could easily have 15.
Yeah, like, and Alex Carrier could have another 10. Like,
Yeah,
this is
no,
the goal totals
I'm
on this team are wild.
yeah, no, again, I'm betting on it's what you said, it's the completeness that I'm betting on here because realistically, like I can't point to any area of this team and say this needs to be upgraded. Like the goaltending is the big one that I'm very high on as far as like above average for the division because I think right now it's Hellebuck, Saros, and to a degree Ottinger, and then it's a lot of question marks for me. Like we're gonna get to Colorado because in my head I'm comparing them to Colorado, right?
Yeah.
And that's the big 2-3 for me. And Colorado is the next one. So who's your Nashville breakout candidate?
Just before we go there, actually, no, it's the exact same. The player I was about to talk about is my breakout candidate. I really like Spencer Stastny. He's injured right
Huh.
now. He's gonna hop in at some point. We've talked about them acquiring a top 4D. I think he can become that. So, there is a bit of an asterisk to it, but I really like his game. I probably saw him play like 10 games, and I didn't really see anything that I would glaringly complain about. Um, I go there instead of Tommy Novak because, as you said, the point total that I said isn't really that much higher than what it already would have been. But yes, I do think Tommy Novechkin puts up 60 points.
Okay,
And yes, he is on my fantasy team, and yes, I'm biased.
Colorado finished third last
Yes.
season. So
Um, do you
take it
want to
away.
do your talking before I ramble? Because my ramble's probably going to be longer.
Yeah, sure. Defense is still very good. I think Samuel Girard needs to have a solid year because to me the the strength of this group as a top four needs to kind of outweigh the uncertainty I see in this bottom pair because I'm not 100% sure who this 5-6 is going to end up being because Calvin DeHaan, I'm not sold on. Sam Malinsky, I'm not sold on. Jacob McDonald,
Aiden,
all of
I just talked to you before we hit record about how high I am on Sam Malinsky being a very solid defenseman.
yeah, no, he's 26 years old and had a breakout AHL season last year. That is, yeah, like it's also for me though, looking at this guy and asking myself, oh, he was really good in the AHL last year. Um, who's he playing with, right? Because I want it to be Oliver Shillington. I don't know if Calvin
I
DeHaan
don't.
is good enough. I don't think DeHaan is good enough. I don't think Jacob McDonald is good enough. Like I think they need at least like DeHaan maybe works if there's a more proven guy on that pair, right? And I like Malinsky in the like yeah, he could be a contributor. If he's playing with DeHaan all season, it scares me a little bit. The forward group is tough because both Landeskog and Nichushkin are kind of just maybe soon, maybe never, right? Like we
And
don't
Lekkonen's out.
and Lekkonen's out, yeah. Jonathan Drouin is going to be asked a lot of again this year.
I think he's
Casey Middle, I think Casey Middlestad in the 2C is good enough. Like I think they solved that center problem that they had after Kadri because Ross Colton is a good 3C as well. Kovalenko is the breakout guy for me because of the opportunity he's going to get, not just like
by all
on the line
accounts
with
from local
Middlestat, but on the power
writers
play as well.
and people who've been
I
watching the
know they
games.
still have
I only
Callum
managed to
Ritchie at
catch one
camp, right?
preseason game, and I loved what I
I don't think
saw.
Callum Ritchie ends up
He
making this
looks
team.
NHL ready,
Um,
poised, locked and loaded, ready to go. He's going to get a 9 game trial, but by all accounts, he looks locked and loaded, ready to go.
okay, my answer, James, is kind of I don't know. This feels like a almost a little bit overthinky. Nichushkin, Lekin, and Landeskog. Two of those guys are back, right? That's safe.
Yeah,
Richie can't go to the AHL. So to me, I don't look at that guy as like, oh yeah, I want him to play on the fourth line or be the 13th forward this year. So I think the path to a top six role is only in the context of these injuries they have. And I would rather Richie instead of playing a chunk of the season in the top six and then being pushed down the lineup and then even farther when the games start to mean more and the experience is prioritized, I'd rather him be a 1C in the O again this year and go play where an A for Canada at the World Juniors, right? I think he's still eligible. He's 19 right now, I'm pretty sure. Um, so that's kind of my thinking with him. I think if we're going to see a guy break into the lineup for Colorado again, it's more likely to be an older dude that is in the AHL that can go up and down, right? That's just kind of the
Yep.
way I see it.
I will go the other way on Richie. I think he's kept around because he costs very little, and you have to make the money work if slash when Landeskog comes back, which means you can move someone out. That is possible. If you say you get two of the three wingers back that we're talking about, and that's Lehkonen, Landeskog, and Nichushkin. Two of like whichever two they are playing with Casey Middlestat, which puts Nikolai Kovalenko and Callum Ritchie on a third line with Ross Colton.
And that's offensively capable enough that Richie would be very justified there. Plus, for me, I know this kid's game has come a long way in the 200 footness. Like he was one of those centers out of the draft where it was like, hey, he needs to work on that. And then he had a really good year last year. So I may be having a little bit of bias because I watched him more as a draft eligible, and I
Yeah.
know for a fact he got better last year at that. So that would Taylor make
People are
him to.
calling him a steal of a pick where he was taken now that he's developed like this.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense because he was one of those kids that looked really, really good at like 12, 13. And I know people are rolling their eyes as I'm saying that because kids being scouted that young is just mind blowing. But he was a really good prospect as a young kid and then was banged up and the trajectory kind of went off the rails. But if the and if the train was centered on the track, he was always going to develop like this, right? It was just a question mark of is he going to be able to do this? Because it was always in him, and it was a high upside bet when they took him. But clearly, it's I thought it was good at the time, and clearly, I think it's worked out.
I actually think he's more likely to stay on the second line than Kovalenko is because
Oh, Kovalenko's just a pest, man. Like he
he's very offensively gifted, but he wants to hit everything and he wants to be a jerk to every player he encounters.
yeah, yeah, he's got a mean streak.
And I love the idea of a him, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor line.
Yeah, that's
Logan
awesome.
O'Connor is the next player I'm bringing up because he was injured for a lot of last season. And without him in the lineup, and without Nichushkin in the lineup, and without Landeskog in the lineup, there was no one that plays the way they do at all. Logan O'Connor is banging bodies on the forecheck. He's first to every puck. The guy skates like crazy. He gets a breakaway every other game just because he outwills people. He is a dynamite player, and that's why he was just signed long term. I think it was like 6 years at 2 million per or something like that. That was earlier this summer. Sam Malinsky in the dozen or so games he played last year, maybe a little less. I actually ended up watching all of them. Yeah. I think I missed 2 periods of Sam Malinsky in the NHL. And Aiden, he's somehow very raw at 26, but he very much fits Jared Bednar's system. Part of me wishes he was a lefty and could play with Josh Manson. He has crazy offensive skill, incredible stride, great skater, great stick defensively as well. The one thing I would like to see more from him is a little bit more work in transition. If his D partner or a winger or center can really help the breakout through the middle, he looks incredible. But when it's his responsibility for that first pass to be the thing that starts off the attack, well, not starts off the attack, but gets it through, um, that's where it's kind of lacking. So I think watching and practicing and playing with some of the players they have, awesome. Um, Pencil in Nathan MacKinnon for being nominated for more awards this year. He probably won't win them, but probably like 120 points or something out of him, maybe 115. One of him or Rantanen scores 50 goals. It is a
Rantanen.
contract year for Mikko Rantanen. He will score 57.
I think he scores 60.
Yeah, contract year. And he's going to get paid like Leon Draisaitl.
I actually think Mikko Rantanen, despite being widely regarded as like a superstar, might still be one of the more underrated players in the NHL. Like the
No
talent this
one
guy
really
has,
talks about him
yeah,
much.
he's unreal, man. Like I would not even blink if he goes 60, 50, 110 this year. I
Yeah.
think that's completely within the realm of possibility,
Yeah.
100%.
And that would
Um,
be
I
his third straight 100-point season.
I think Makar is going to hit 100 points if he plays 82 games for
Me
sure.
too.
Yeah,
Uh, I think it's a Makar Norris this year.
oh, for sure. Dude, listen, I love Quinn Hughes and I'm so happy he won the Norris. Cale Makar is a top three player in the NHL. He's the only defenseman, I think, in the top five. He is by far the best defenseman in the NHL. He is like so it's the same thing as like trying to compare McDavid to guys like that's part of the reason why it just drove me crazy the year that Matthews won the Hart that people were trying to say that he was the best player in the league. It's like yeah, like Quinn Hughes was the best defenseman last year. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in hockey, period, right? Like that and I'm a Canucks fan and I'm it's not even close.
Yeah.
So yes, to me, every year you should be betting on a Makar Norris, regardless of what happened the previous season, because to me, he's the favorite every year.
One thing out of Colorado's training camp and preseason games that I've noticed, it seems they may be starting to set up their power play slightly differently format wise. They've always been Makar at the right point, McKinnon at the left point, insert center here, whether it was Comfer, whether it's Middlestat now, Kadri, whoever. It's always been insert center. And then a combination of Rantanen and whatever other winger, sometimes Inchushin, Landeskog, Lehkonen, whoever. Uh, I've been told that they are trying different things out, whether it's Rantanen taking the face off or McKinnon taking the face off. That is a different route they're going so that they can get either Drouin or Rantanen at the point to start setting up a different style of play. It does make sense because they've had the same style of power play for like 5 years now.
They do this thing 5-on-5 with Makar, Taves, and one of the forwards
You
where
talking about the pick?
no, the forward will kick out high in the middle of the ice, and then Makar and Taves both activate at the same time.
Yep.
So I want to see them try that 5-on-4 because I think if you have Rantanen kind of cut up in the middle of the ice and then Makar and Taves both activate down the sides. I keep hitting my microphone because I'm doing this with my hands. But like both activating down the left and the right sides. I think that opens up so much. It's going to open up Rantanen up top again, or McKinnon, or anybody, right? Like, I would like to see them go. I'm a huge 4 forward, 1D guy on the power play, but
Yeah.
Colorado specifically, I want to see go 3 forwards and 2D.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. Two last notes here. Gabriel Landeskog said his return will be between October and April. It will be this regular season if he has his way. So
Okay.
basically, he doesn't know. The
Yeah.
number two, the other thing, 40% shot Jussis Onanen steals the starting spot from Georgiev this season.
Yeah. And
And if it
that's,
isn't this season, it's next year.
um, James, I'm very confident it's this season.
Yeah.
Um,
As a Alexander Georgiev fantasy owner, and he has been one of the top fantasy goalies for 2 seasons, I'm scared.
yeah, it's that's probably the thing that kind of breaks the tie with me. Not just the fact that I'm not high on Georgiev. I like Annunen. Again, it's just I'm putting Annunen next to Yusei Saros, and I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna be Saros, isn't it? And that's kind of part
Middleton's
of my,
very good, and he will get better. He is
yeah, I
still
know.
developing,
Yeah, well, how old is he?
but he's not
He's
Saros.
he's 24, isn't he? Like he's
Yep.
not 24 is young for a goalie. Like, but Georgiev struggled last year a lot. Um,
He led the NHL in wins, but he was not a top 10 goalie in the NHL.
No, and he had didn't he have an above, like, despite leading the NHL in wins, he had an over 3 goals against and a below 900 save percentage, if I'm remembering correctly, because I don't have the numbers in front of me. Um,
But I
which
will
is
say by game
bad.
two of the playoffs, he was elite.
Yeah, and again, I just crave consistency with hockey players sometimes, right?
Yep. Like
Um,
big moments, he does do extremely well in playoffs. Like he had that one god awful first game. That was it. After that, it was perfectly fine. Sunshine and daisies.
oh,
Um,
next is Winnipeg.
You have Colorado where?
I have them in third, and I've got Kovalenko breaking out.
All right. I've got like three breakouts, but give me Casey Middlestat at 70 points
Interesting.
because I think he sticks on that first power play all year.
Yes, if he does, then he will. That was
Uh,
my thought.
and give me second.
Okay.
Yeah. I have them over Nashville. I forgot to say that about Nashville before.
So I assume these last two teams, we have one in fourth and one in first, right?
Yep.
Okay,
And we have
so
the exact same ones.
yeah, so Winnipeg we have in fourth. Um,
I
again,
just want to preface what Aiden's about to say. He's very low on the Jets.
yeah, I want to like this team, but me liking this team in a like they can do something way, they need a center and they need a top. You know what? They need a top three defenseman. I'm not even going to qualify top four. They need an elite defenseman and a second line center to be good enough to expect them to win a playoff series this year, unfortunately. And that could very well happen during the season. Or they could kind of be waiting for it to be the Velarde, Perfetti, Brad Lambert group. But their high-end players are very good. Their depth is weak. Their defense is weak. Connor Hellebuck needs to have another Vezina caliber season. My breakout for this team is Velarde because I think a healthy Gabe Velarde is actually going to be kind of a monster. If
70.
he, yeah, yeah, I think he has 70-point potential. Um, I like Perfetti a lot. I don't think he's far off a breakout season. I don't know if it's this year. I would have my money on Velarde more so because he did score 20 goals in less than 50 games last year. It's worth pointing out.
Yep.
So it's just if he stays healthy. Connor Hellebuck's one of the best goalies in the league. He's probably top three. Josh
Josh Morrissey is
Morrissey,
one of the best defensemen in the league.
yep. He was one of the probably the best five last year. I'd say he's one of the best 10 going in this season.
Yep.
Um, yeah, to me this is pretty cut and dry actually. Like they're gonna finish fourth, they're gonna get a wild card spot, and they will go as far in the playoffs as Connor Hellebuck will carry them.
Um, I do think Mark Scheifele has a playoff dog in him that we have yet to see.
Oh, we've seen it, man. Don't you remember how good he was in
Yes.
2018?
Okay, it's
Oh,
been a long time.
yeah. Oh, dude, he was like it was literally just Flurry. That was that
Yeah.
was the only thing that stopped that guy. Like he would have won the
Um,
Conn Smythe.
a couple years ago, we could all agree that Kyle Connor was one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. I think a lot of people forgot that. I think he scores 50 this year.
Interesting. That's high, but yeah, he's a good player.
Well, he was
He's
on pace for 50 twice.
yeah, he's got it in him for sure.
And I think the way they're going to be set up this year, I love a Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Gabe Vilardi line. My God, I don't even care what happens when the rest of the players are on the ice. That's a sick line. That is your prototypical, everything is lined up nicely, where, like, in terms of player roles, these guys are all going to be able to do what they need to do. And then, as you said, they really need a center. Vladislav Nemesnikov should not be centering Perfetti and Ehlers.
And you know what? Maybe it's Jaeger next year, right? Maybe
Maybe
that
it
was
is.
part of the trade. Like they turned McGroarty into Jaeger, which I think was a really good thing, especially at the time they did it. They got Colby Barlow in the system too. He's more of a winger, I think, in the NHL. He played center in junior because a lot of guys play center in junior.
Yeah.
Um, and Brad Lambert didn't make the team, but he played good enough in the A last year that if Winnipeg are hurting for offense this year, I don't think he lasts long in the I guess it's in Manitoba, but a different Manitoba.
Definitely. Their third line, incredible as always.
I love Lowry, man.
Yeah. Yeah. In watching that series between Colorado and Winnipeg, in the first two games, my thought was, oh God, I had no idea Lowry was this good.
Yeah, he's a
He's
player.
built for playoffs. If they are able to sniff winning a playoff series, he's a massive part of it. I'd like to see a step forward from Rasmus Kupari. I don't know what that step forward is. I don't really see a spot in the third line, like on a third line where he can do that, and I don't think he's a top six forward.
Yeah, I think it's now or never for him. I think next year, if he doesn't do it this year, next year is going to be he's going to be a very, very, very good producer on a very, very good SHL team.
Watch for this team to pick up Ivan Provorov.
Hmm.
He's on an expiring deal. Columbus will no doubt be shipping him out, and Columbus will have no problem retaining salary. I think he's a perfect fit to play with Neil Pionk. I think that would be great. I think this would help this team a lot. But I know you're pretty low on Provorov, but I think he's a really solid player.
No, I so want him to be good because he's so much fun to watch when he's at his best. It's
Remember that bubble
become
playoff Provorov?
yes, but it's just become fewer and farther between those performances as time's gone on. Okay,
Definitely.
lastly is the team that we both have in first, but I don't think I got a breakout from Winnipeg from you.
Um, yeah. Give me actually, does it count as a breakout if it's Kyle Connor hitting 50?
I'll
Because
say sure because
it's
he
already a
only
super.
scored like yeah, he only scored like 34 last year, so I'll give it to you, sure.
Yeah, like that's a 16 goal jump. Okay. Dallas Stars, Aiden. In my opinion, probably the best team in the league, structure wise.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think
On paper.
it's hard. It's hard. I like Edmonton a lot. I like I do like the Leafs the way they're set up this year. Um, to me, this Dallas team, completely it's completely do they make it's what do they make of these players, honestly? Because you're talking about on paper, and I think you're exactly right. Because I think the Dallas having a lot of success versus Dallas maybe not hitting their potential is going to come from how does the middle six of Marchment, Sagan, Duchesne, Ben, Bork, and Stankoven fit together? Like it,
Amazingly.
yeah, and if that's the case, I think they're the best team in the league. Um, I want to see how it happens. That's all. And I don't even doubt it's going to happen. I think it will. But to me, that's the only question mark. Heiskanen and Thomas Harley are going to keep being two of the best defensemen in the league because that's what Harley was last year.
Esa
Lindell,
Lindell signed to a big extension and he's oh remember when uh Winnipeg's coach may have been Paul Maurice got Dylan DeMello and he explained his style of play as coach's porn? Esa
that's a
Lindell.
Paul Maurice thing to say. Yeah, yeah.
Esa Lindell.
Yeah,
Bang.
and you know what? He's going to need to be because Matt Dumba and Ilya Labushkin are two-thirds of their right side. And the other one is Nils Lundqvist, who defensively
Leaves a
is not much
lot to be
better.
desired.
Yeah, yeah. I think Lindell and Lundqvist works as a third pair.
Yeah.
It's just right shot partners for Heiskanen and Harley. If you want to play Harley with Labushkin, fine, but are we really counting on Dumba here to be a top pair defenseman? Because that's
Aiden, this is
silly.
the old Tampa Bay Lightning blue line setup where Hedman, Sergachev, and McDonough are on the left side, and they all play with filler players.
Yeah, and you know what? If it works, it works.
Yep.
I'm kind of just nitpicking this roster because it's otherwise I'm just going to be gushing over it. Wyatt Johnston could have 100 points this year.
Okay, that's far.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, he's my breakout probably of the West. It's him or Gunther, but I'd probably say it's him overall.
I thought like
Uh,
85 was pretty fair.
yeah, no,
You're that high on him? I knew you're high on him, but
I love him either as the 1C or on the wing with Robertson and Hintz. Like I think either way he could totally dominate. Yeah. No, I think the playoffs last year unlocked something in him. Like it was a great regular season and he was so dominant in the first two rounds of the playoffs that Logan Stankoven to me as well. Like he could win rookie of the year easily. We could see him put
but
up
I could also see him playing on a third line all year.
yeah, he could that too. Right? Like it's again, it's
That
kind of
one's hard
how
for me.
it's how the pieces fall into place. I kind of like the idea of him playing on the wing with Marchment and Duchesne, and then
Yep.
going Ben Sagan and Bork on the third line, right?
Yep.
And so again, that's playing Bork as a center probably because Sagan hasn't played center in a few years. Sam Steele's their 4C, which means he could move up easily because he's good. um, they've got Dadonov on their fourth line. Like it's they got a lot
Oh,
of
Blackwell
options.
too.
Yeah, they have a lot of options. And if I'm looking at this Dallas team again, like I just what was Robertson's season last year? 80 points. I think he's got a lot more in him. I think he's gonna have 95 again. Like 80
Well,
was a
Aiden,
down year.
it's about the spread, right? Like with all these guys on this team, it's like how we were talking about Forsberg and Nashville. I don't think Forsberg puts up the same season he puts up last year because there's so many guys who are going to contribute to this offense.
With that being said, I think Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston are going to end up being the top. that's the first line, and that is going to be like as deep as this team is, that's going to be to this team what Ranton and Landeskog and McKinnon were to Colorado to me, right? Like
Oh,
it's going to be them in all situations, and it's just they're not as good as them, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's going to be them as the go-to always. It's going to be them three on the first power play unit. So I think all three of those guys are going to fill the net up. Um, their defense is good. Their goaltending's good. Yeah, first in the Central. Johnston's my guy to break out big.
all right. You know what? I have Maverick Bork putting up a very, very solid full rookie season. I'm talking like a 45 to 55 point third liner.
You know what? He had 77 in 71 games last year in an AHL that is not easy to score in.
Aiden, I think he's going to feast on matchups because Duchesne plays against team's best players very often, and that's something he's quite good at.
Well, and the attention paid to that first line is going to benefit him like crazy too.
Exactly
Well, and
right.
you know what? If Duchesne, Marchman, and Sagan end up kind of being like a checking line, Ben Bork and Stankoven's a super fun offensive second line
Oh,
too, right?
yeah.
You could swap Ben and Marchment if you wanted, or Sagan and Marchment, something like that.
Similar idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're all in the same boat here. One question I have though, I saw in a bunch of award predictions, a couple people were saying Rope Hint Selkie. I I'm not there on him. Are you?
No, but that's one of those awards that you could easily have an out of nowhere winner because it's, I think, very easy for one player to take a huge step forward while another player takes a step back, kind of thing. I wouldn't have him as like a front runner, but as a dark horse, I like it.
Okay, all right. I don't
Yeah.
mind that then. Aiden, we picked favorites and awards and biggest risers and stuff like that. How about you set
Yeah,
us up?
we had six categories. So three of these questions are for teams, and then three of these questions are for players. So from you right now, I want the team you think is going to finish first place in the entire West, the team you think that's going to improve the most, the biggest riser from last year, and the team that you think is going to be the most disappointing in this conference.
Dallas first in the West,
Yeah.
Utah biggest riser,
Okay.
and Seattle most disappointing.
Okay. Who leads the conference in points?
Connor McDavid, easy cop out.
Yeah. Breakout.
Uh, Breakout and best rookie are two different things, right?
Yeah.
So give me best rookie Cutter Gauthier.
Okay. I like that.
That I had enough faith that I used a very high draft pick on him in fantasy, as we said. Um,
Hmm.
I'm very, very high on him. And breakout, give me, you know what? Um, I actually thought about this after we talked about it. Give me a true number one D breakout, Mikhail Sergachev.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I'm not talking, oh, he put up a lot of points because he took over the power play spot from Hedman. No, I'm talking a true dominant number one D. What he was always intended to be, you know?
Okay, so my best team, again, unfortunately, I think we're gonna have a matching one here. It's gonna be Dallas. Biggest riser's tough. Again, like I don't want us to have the same one again, but I think it's gonna be Utah because I have them
Uh,
rocketing into the playoffs too. My disappointing is LA more because I just think that forward group is too good to finish where I think they're gonna finish, right? Like I just to me, when you have Fiala and you have Kempe and you have Byfield, Dano, like not to mention the defense that they had with Doughty, like I I just don't think it's going to happen for the Kings this year, largely again because I do think Vegas, Edmonton, and Vancouver are a step ahead. So I think LA is going to disappoint. I still have them in fourth. I just think them missing
They
the
could take
playoffs.
that wild card spot from Utah. It's possible.
I know. I just think them out of the playoffs is a disappointment. So I probably have them in that spot. Yeah, McDavid's the points. I'm so torn, man. The breakout is it's Gunther or Johnston, but I think Wyatt Johnston takes the biggest step forward, not just because I think he will in points, because I genuinely think you're going to see him just dominate in terms of like he's going to have the puck on his stick the entire time he's on the ice, right? Like he's just the way that guy plays is he's a bulldog. So Johnston's my breakout. I'm also super torn in rookie. It's not Gauthier. It's between Macklin and Logan Stankoven, but I think again the one I'm more confident with because he's going to be their first line center all year is Celebrini.
That's
So
very fair. I kind of thought you were going that way.
yeah, I think it's going to be Celebrini. I think Stankoven is if Stankoven was had a spot in Dallas's top six on lock, I'd probably pick him, but Celebrini will be the guy for me.
Um,
William Eklund was the other breakout that I toyed with. Him and McTavish were kind of in
you
that
have a
group.
second biggest riser in terms of team.
A second one, Nashville comes to mind, even like they were good last year. Um, Otherwise, I could see Anaheim in terms of points just because they were brutal last year wins wise. Like I don't think they're going to rocket up the standings, but they were like 27 and 50 or something ridiculous, 25 and 50, something dumb like that last year. They're not going to be that bad again.
Definitely. Well, Aiden, I think that's our Western Conference preview in a nutshell. A
Yeah, it
very
is.
large nutshell, more like a bag of nuts.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the last one, but it wasn't much better.
I think we shaved about 20 minutes off, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it
It
all came like at the end because me and James both just absolutely fell asleep at the end of the last one, and we're still awake, so that's better than we did last time.
all right. So, next pod after this one, we will get back to our kind of more regular format. We'll get back to the games. We'll get back to the movies, and we'll have a lot of NHL news to talk. Anything else to add?
Don't think so. Go watch your local junior hockey teams.
Well, thank you all for listening. Without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.